Chapter 141. The Ravenclaw Quidditch team won so overwhelmingly that celebrations after the game were inevitable. All the young wizards of Eagle House gathered in the Ravenclaw common room. Even Professor Flitwick participated in the fun with great interest. There were delicious food, wizard chess, quiz games with prizes, and small talk. Everyone had a great time. The only regret was that Yang Tian, who won the game, seemed much more shy. Apart from the brief victory declaration before the banquet, he spent the rest of the time eating. Everyone couldn't help wondering, is Quidditch so physically demanding? Despite this, the party was still lively. Penelope, Zhongqiu, Hermione, and Padma acted as the atmosphere mediators, and the whole process was not dull. That's right, why are these people so weird today? Could it be that they won the game too spectacularly and were too excited? At the same time, figures suddenly flashed in the outskirts of a remote town in Gwynedd, northern Wales, and a group of more than 30 members of the Nightmare team appeared. All members were dressed in black nightmare robes, wrapping themselves tightly. The only difference from last time was that there were 3 more short companions in the team. The Nightmare group did not scout around, but were very skilled in making preparations for the battle. Only a short wizard was squatting in the grass, chatting happily with some small earthworms and snails. That's right, these 30-plus people were exactly the Nightmare team played by Xiaolao and Yang Tian. The new short wizards who joined the team were naturally Hermione, Penelope, and Padma. After receiving the intelligence, Yang Tian, accompanied by old Xia, threw his stalking army into this remote town. These stalking soldiers were also very capable. In just a few days, they had figured out the general situation. No wonder, you don't allow the birds in the sky to enter, and you also care about the snakes and snails that burrow into the soil? How is that possible? However, as the information continued to be compiled, Yang Tian became troubled. The results of the reconnaissance were truly mixed. What's worrying is that although there are more than 1,000 people living in this so-called remote town, there is not a single decent resident. They are all disguised as plainclothes officers, soldiers, and wizards. What's even more disgusting is that there are heavy weapons such as tanks and artillery here. It should be the size of a reinforced battalion, right? The good news is that the number of wizards stationed here is not particularly large, at least it is slightly less than that of the research institute. Maybe the people of Sarek never thought that this remote orphanage would become a target of attack? What's even more gratifying is that the little guys are really awesome, some of them even sneaked into the orphanage and took a long journey inside the orphanage's building. Although some of their companions were sacrificed for this, they also brought out a lot of important information. For example, the internal structure of the building has 2 floors above ground and only 1 floor underground, or there are a large number of people in the building, but not many black-robed wizards, only about 100 or so. To be honest, when Yang Tian received this news, he felt a headache. After all, the scale of the organization is at least 1 or 2,000 people, and the risk is too great. But when discussing with the Yang family, Xiaolao and others gave him enough confidence in a complete battle plan. In this case, what else can be said? Just be reckless. If the success rate wasn't extremely high and safety wasn't guaranteed, how could Yang Tian have made up his mind to bring the 3 little ones to carry out the mission? Seeing that everyone was ready, Yang Tian drank the polyjuice potion and chuckled, "Okay, brothers, let's start the action according to the plan." Upon hearing this, everyone immediately hid their bodies and sneaked away. Old Xia carefully protected the 4 children by his side to prevent any accidents. The action plan had already been formed, and the Nightmare members naturally followed orders and performed their duties. Soon, various jade stones were buried in the soil at the corresponding positions. More than a dozen talismans that Yang Tian did not recognize were also slapped on the corresponding tree trunks and house walls, and disappeared in an instant. Before they knew it, a thick fog had appeared at the location where the jade was buried, covering the entire town, including all the scenery within a kilometer. The Nightmare people had obviously expected this, and hurriedly took out a sky-eye talisman and slapped it on themselves. Suddenly, the scene in the fog was in full view. But in the thick fog, both the soldiers and the spies became confused and walked aimlessly like zombies, which was extremely weird. The 3 children were particularly shocked. Just as they were about to ask questions, they heard anxious shouts from afar. The Nightmare team was not new either, so they followed the shouts and went up. Old Xia leisurely led the 4 children to wait on the spot, waiting for the result calmly. "Grandpa Xia, how is this fog formed? Will even wizards be affected?" Hermione finally couldn't bear her curiosity and asked. This fog is generated by the mist and smoke maze. The vision of ordinary wizards will be affected to a certain extent, but not very greatly. Old Xia answered patiently. Then why are these people in a daze? Is it caused by that formation? Hermione continued to ask. Of course not. This is caused by the charm. Ordinary people within the range of the charm, which you call muggles, will lose themselves and become zombies. However, when the charm loses its effect, these ordinary people will return to normal. The three women continued to ask questions of interest, but they heard screams of ah, ah, ah one after another. Nearly 5 minutes later, the team members finally returned one by one. After counting, no one was injured. Young master, the periphery has been completely cleared. There are 43 black-robed wizards in total, and no one survived. We can start the attack. Kai reported. Very good, let's get started. Quick battle and quick decision. Yang Tian said in a firm voice. Following the order, the Nightmare team rushed to the classical 2-story house with red bricks and brown tiles at lightning speed. But there was a loud boom and the wooden door shattered. The 5 idiots, who were ready to go, rushed in with the Vajra talisman, and the others followed closely. But as soon as they entered the door, the scene that came into view shocked everyone. The hall on the first floor was a huge empty martial arts arena, with dozens of human-shaped targets and solid sandbags. Of course, these training equipment were common and did not attract much attention. But the biggest problem was that huge wooden crosses were neatly arranged around the martial arts arena, and on the crosses were young children. Some of them were headless, some had broken arms, some had a big gaping hole in their stomachs, and some had a huge sword stuck in their chests. The only thing they had in common was that they had already become cold corpses. The 3 girls had never seen such a scene before. They opened their mouths to scream, but their hands covered their mouths tightly. They still remembered their mission and understood why they came here. Yang Tian looked at the 3 women's actions with a satisfied look on his face. But he also understood that these actions were actually meaningless. Yang Tian had reason to believe that the inexplicably rising fog should have aroused the other party's high vigilance. Sure enough, in this moment of distraction, the black-robed wizards stationed on duty launched an attack from behind the shelters in the corridors on both sides. The piercing alarm sounded. Chapter 142. Faced with the magical attacks that came like snowflakes, the Nightmare members were naturally no pushovers. The 5 idiots took the lead, using white jade slabs to hold up a transparent protective shield. Caiu and Liang Yu each led a team to rush out, and the talismans were blasted out immediately. Seeing this scene, the 3 women naturally did not want to be left behind. Although they were weak, didn't they still have talismans? Although the accuracy is a little, oh, that's normal, right? They haven't practiced this before. So they need to practice more, right? For a while, the 2 sides fought back and forth. But in this short period of time, the brows of the Nightmare members unconsciously frowned. I didn't feel it when I attacked the town just now, but now I found something strange when I confronted them head-on. The black-robed wizards stationed at the orphanage seemed to be very good at using black magic, and the power of the black magic they cast was extremely strong, even equivalent to the attack power of 2 ordinary black-robed wizards. This was very strange. For a while, the 2 sides fell into a stalemate. Seeing that the situation was not good, Yang Tian was not willing to sit still and wait for death. He suddenly shouted loudly, Plan 1, 3, 2, 1, start. But as soon as the word open was spoken, all the Nightmare members closed their eyes at the same time. The next moment, several dazzling white light balls shot out from Yang Tian's ancient magic wand and exploded 1 meter before reaching the enemy camp. The strong white light instantly filled the eyes of the black-robed wizards, and the brightness around them instantly increased several times. Yang Tian smiled confidently. That was Lumos Solemn, the 4th form of luminescent that Professor Flitwick had taught him. It could make the spell emit a dazzling light. And for him, wasn't this a natural flash bomb? The blindness at that moment finally turned into a disaster for the black-robed wizards. The Nightmare who had practiced tactics long ago rushed forward, and the talismans rained down on the enemy camp, killing and wounding the black-robed wizards in an instant. As the saying goes, strike him while he's weak. How could the Nightmare people let go of this golden opportunity? They penetrated, cut, and defeated them one by one. In just a few breaths, there was no black-robed wizard left alive in the entire hall on the first floor. Seeing the enemy being wiped out, the 3 women who participated in the operation for the first time breathed a sigh of relief. However, Thinking about their performance just now and looking at Yang Tian who controlled the battlefield, the three of them couldn't help but feel disappointed. This actual combat ability was really a bit embarrassing. The members of Nightmare also felt a little heavy in their hearts. The defensive strength of this orphanage was much stronger than they had imagined. What kind of danger was waiting for them in this basement? But now is not the time to be sad, so 4 people stayed to search for the fish that had escaped the net on the 2nd floor. The rest of the people rushed into the basement. As soon as they entered the basement, everyone was shocked again. There was no way they could not be shocked. This was not a basement at all, it was clearly a base, okay? In this spacious passage, there were bunkers everywhere, heavy machine guns, grenades, rocket launchers, close combat self-propelled artillery. Yang Tian was very confused. Are these things really used to deal with wizards? What is even more puzzling is that there are no soldiers in this passage full of bunkers and weapons. What are they doing? Although he couldn't see Yang Tian's face, Elder Xia still noticed that the young master was suddenly stunned. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Don't be surprised. Although this place is underground, it is also underground in this town and is within the coverage of the enchantment talisman. This charm can actually ignore soil and alloy." Yang Tian's surprised voice came. "Haha, I thought the young master had understood this principle a long time ago. Aren't soil and alloys also within the 5 elements?" Old Xia explained. Yang Tian was deeply touched when he heard this. In an instant, he had a deeper understanding of the essence of cultivation. Apart from Elder Xia's timely instruction, the other members of the Nightmare were racing against time, stepping up their exploration and moving forward. After passing through a group of bunkers and then a camp, the style of the passage suddenly changed. After blasting open 3 reinforced iron doors in succession, the originally bare passages on both sides were replaced by rows of stone cells. It is not an exaggeration to call it a prison cell. However, each room has stone walls on 3 sides, and only the side facing the passage is made of alloy railings. Inside the room, toilet, wash basin, shower, wooden bed. It is monotonous and fixed, and there is no shelter. How can there be any privacy living here? The cells I walked through were all the same, the only difference was perhaps the number of beds: 8-person rooms, 4-person rooms, 2-person rooms, single rooms. Until now, the members of Nightmare still haven't seen anyone. After passing through this passage that looked like a prison area, everyone just turned around a corridor when a fierce magic attack came. Wu Qi was quick-witted and used the white jade slab to prop up a transparent protective shield in an instant. But this attack was really fierce, it was actually a spell cast by 3 green-robed wizards together. The transparent protective shield only took 1 blow and shattered in an instant. But the various spells of the numerous black-robed wizards also hit like hail. Seeing this scene, Old Xia frowned, but his hands moved quickly. He waved and shook his left hand, and a transparent energy plate was pushed in front of everyone, taking on all the damage from the spell. But the green-robed wizard was not a pushover. Instantly, the curse started again, this time it was a blazing fire curse. The ferocious flaming beast seemed to burn everything around it. Kiao listened to Yang Tian's detailed account of the battle at the Research Institute, and threw out an ice crystal talisman without hesitation, and the blazing fire turned into an ice sculpture in an instant. The green-robed wizards would not give the enemy any chance to breathe, and the terrifying blasting spell came again. Xiaolao had no choice but to take out a small golden bell from his arms and knock it gently. Then a transparent golden bell energy shield enveloped everyone. The continuous ringing of the bell, mixed with the sound of explosions, caused the 2 sides to fall into a complete stalemate. It can even be said that although the Nightmare fought back with all their might, they were still at a disadvantage. There were too many black-robed wizards. The balance of victory seemed to have tilted towards the black-robed wizards. Faced with such pressure, the 3 women were already a little panicked. Although they were also desperately firing talismans, the protective light shields that the enemy occasionally erected seemed to have become an insurmountable gap for them. Faced with such a situation, Yang Tian remained calm. He silently paid attention to the situation on the battlefield and thought about how to deal with it. But in the next moment, Yang Tian took off his hood, revealing that rat-like face that could fascinate everyone. Chapter 143. At this moment, there was no trace of greasiness on the mouse's face, but instead there was ferocity and determination. The bald short wizard suddenly pointed his ancient magic wand at his temple, and a snake-like sound of hiss, hiss, came out of his mouth. As the magic power surged, his eyes suddenly glowed with blue-purple light. Those strange eyes were as terrifying as the gods and demons in the sky, but they also attracted the enemy's attention like bright stars. The next moment, the three green-robed wizards felt their bodies stiffen, and the spell they were sketching was interrupted. A bone-chilling chill overflowed from the depths of their souls, as if to freeze their souls completely. The green-robed wizards were shocked and tried to break free with their willpower. But for a moment, it was difficult to do so. They increased their mental control like crazy. 2 seconds, they swore, as long as they were given 2 more seconds, they would be able to break free from the damned shackles. Unfortunately, it's too late. The ice crystal talisman appeared in front of them instantly, and the three green-robed wizards turned into ice sculptures in an instant. At this time, the rat's face was extremely pale, with a trace of blood slowly dripping from the corner of his eyes, but he didn't care about it at all. He just put on his hood again and stood aside quietly, looking like a master. In fact, Yang Tian was in a very bad situation at this time. The magic he used was the death stare in the snake language magic. This spell used the eyes as a medium to freeze the soul of the enemy who looked at him and eventually kill him. But this has a prerequisite, that is, the soul power of the caster must be at least equal to the total soul power of the castee. Otherwise, once the spell is broken by the other party, the caster will suffer a huge backlash. But those were three green-robed wizards, how could their soul power be so easy to deal with? If Yang Tian hadn't absorbed the souls in the book to support him, if the 5 idiots hadn't acted decisively, in a few seconds, maybe Yang Tian would really have become an idiot. But then again, if the situation had not been critical at the time, Yang Tian would never have chosen to use this spell on the three green-robed wizards at the same time. Now, hard work always pays off, and it is precisely because Yang Tian was willing to take risks that he was able to deal with the three green-robed wizards so quickly. Having lost their strongest combat force and the command of their leader, the black-robed wizards suddenly felt at a loss, but they still fought back at the risk of their lives and did not retreat a single step. Unfortunately, the balance of victory has begun to tilt towards Nightmare. How can a mere black-robed wizard save the situation? At this time, Xiaolao also exerted his strength, and saw that the Nightmare black robe on his body suddenly swelled up like an inflatable, but when it reached its limit, he suddenly pushed his palm forward. In an instant, a huge shock wave violently raged forward. Wherever it passed, the wind whistled, the ground shook, and the black-robed wizards could not even stand still. The Nightmare team worked in perfect harmony and seized this fleeting opportunity again. After another fierce charge and fierce killing, the enemy in front of them was finally completely eliminated. This time, everyone did not move forward immediately, but looked at Yang Tian worriedly. Yang Tian waved his hand and said, "It's okay, I've recovered. Let's proceed according to the plan." Hearing that Yang Tian's voice was indeed much calmer, Old Xia gave the order with confidence, "Search forward, be careful of the enemy's sneak attack." Everyone also hurriedly followed the order. However, the following passage was flat and wide, and no one else appeared, which made the Nightmare group puzzled. After turning another corner, everyone finally stopped. The reason was that the way ahead was blocked by an extremely huge white security door. The members of Nightmare quickly reorganized their formation and began to prepare for the battle. When everything was ready, the 5 idiots did not waste any time and cast a spell to blast open the door. I thought I would be greeted by a torrential rain of magical attacks, but after standing still for 3 seconds, I only saw a dozen black-robed wizards holding wands, hiding behind cover, looking ready to die. In that case, what was there to hesitate about? The members of the Nightmare rushed forward, and in a few breaths, their wish to die was fulfilled. It was also at this time that everyone began to take a look at the world behind the white security door. I have to say that the world behind this door is very simple. There are 2 rooms standing side by side on the left side of the passage, and on the right side of the passage is an extremely huge prison. Just by taking a look at the prison, everyone in Nightmare showed a look of understanding. Such a huge cell was already overcrowded, hundreds of children, more than a dozen people in white coats, and 700 or 800 soldiers all walking and stopping with dull eyes, like zombies. As there were so many people imprisoned, the cell seemed quite crowded. Several children seemed to have been pushed to the ground inadvertently and were about to be trampled at any moment. Seeing this, Hermione hurried forward, drew her wand and was about to cast Alakoma. But Yang Tian suddenly shouted angrily, "Come back!" Before he finished speaking, he exerted force with his left hand and pulled Hermione back. Hermione was about to ask a question, but she saw that the children who had just fallen to the ground, as well as several other children, were holding wands at the same time and attacking her with sneers on their faces. Yang Tian ignored the attacks and drew a sharp arc with the ancient magic wand, petrify them all. As expected, they cooperated well. Just as these attacks were about to hit them, Wu Kai's transparent protective shield also arrived. The next moment, the little wizards who launched the attack froze in astonishment. Lock these people up first and assign 2 people to guard them closely. We will then screen them one by one later. Yang Tian said immediately. After a pause, he looked at Hermione angrily and said, I hope you will reflect on this carefully now and don't make this mistake again next time. Otherwise, not only will you lose your life, but you will also implicate your teammates. After that, he ignored Hermione who looked regretful and aggrieved, and entered the first room on the right without looking back. After entering, he found that it was just a luxuriously decorated office. Yang Tian was not very interested in it, and just ordered his men to check carefully before going to the next room. This second room made Yang Tian very excited, because there was a giant computer in it. He hurriedly held a data cable in his hand, and a cold electronic synthesized voice came as expected, a low-end large-capacity operating system was found. Do you want to obtain the operating system permissions? Yang Tian quickly issued an order, do your best to obtain the permissions, and copy all the data in the system after obtaining them. A few minutes later, the mechanical voice sounded again, all data has been copied. The secret door control command was found in the system. Do you want to open it? Secret door? Is there a secret door here? Yang Tian was puzzled when he heard this, but he quickly ordered, open it. In an instant, a smooth wall on the right side of the room suddenly split apart, revealing a huge portal. Everyone was shocked and quickly drew out their weapons and talismans and went forward to scout. The room behind the secret door was not very big, and it seemed that it could barely accommodate 40 or 50 people. But the display inside was quite strange. In the middle of the room was a high-tech medical chair, which was connected to various catheters. The other end of the catheter was connected to a transparent container, and in the container was a black object that looked like a mineral. Seeing this scene, everyone was curious and walked forward to take a closer look. However, Yang Tian felt something was wrong when he entered the room. It seemed that he had a sense of familiarity. He was suspicious, but seeing that everyone was fine, he followed the crowd and walked forward. But at this moment, something strange happened. When Yang Tian approached, the black ore-like object seemed to be summoned by something, and it shook desperately. The next moment, the transparent container completely exploded, and the black ore also transformed at this moment like water and mist, shooting towards Yang Tian. Wu Qi was startled and quickly put up a protective shield, but the next moment the black fog passed through him without any hindrance. Old Xia, who had not taken it seriously at first, was now sweating in his palms. He wanted to help, but it was too late. The black fog penetrated his body and went straight into Yang Tian's danshan. The next moment he understood, I was wondering why it felt so familiar, isn't this the black energy? As soon as this thought came to mind, a huge pain spread throughout Yang Tian's body. He felt a black screen before his eyes and completely passed out. Chapter 144. When Yang Tian woke up, he found that he had already returned to the Yang family's residence in Hogsmeade village. But he was in a very bad state at this time. Not only was his head dizzy, but his body was in a tearing pain. This reminded him of the state he was in after the terrifying night in the library. Seeing him slowly waking up, cheers instantly broke out around him. Yang Tian raised his eyelids slightly, but couldn't see clearly around him, so he could only ask weakly, how long has it been since we attacked the orphanage? Penelope's voice came at the right time, don't worry, it's only been less than 2 hours. You can still rest for a while. The celebration party may not be over yet. After getting the answer he wanted, Yang Tian fell silent again. Of course, he didn't really fall asleep, but he wanted to check his current physical condition. The bad feeling made him feel uneasy. Yang Tian hastily turned on his inner vision, first scanning his brain, but there was no difference in his mind from before. Then where did his drowsiness come from? Confused, Yang Tian began to scan his danshan again. It would have been fine if he hadn't looked at it. When he looked at it, he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. However, he saw that the black energy within his danshan had transformed into a black creature that looked like a dog but not a dog, and was now engaged in a fierce battle with the firebird transformed from the fire element. That's right, it's not a frolic, it's a fight. The red flames of the firebird were flying all over the sky, but the big dog dodged them nimbly. The big dog also released strange and brutal black energy at the right time, but was also burned to ashes by the scorching flames of the firebird. These two guys are really a perfect match, and the fight is evenly matched, and they are having a lot of fun. But this set of operations has made other elements around them suffer, especially the weakest water element. If it weren't for the protection of the strange little dragon transformed by the Candle Dragon Eye magic wand, this firefly-like water element would have been extinguished long ago. What was even more terrifying was that this black dog was extremely treacherous and cunning. Seeing that it could not do anything to the firebird and the strange little dragon, it strangely released the black energy outside of his danshan, which continued to erode Yang Tian's soul and internal organs. Yang Tian finally understood where the drowsiness came from. How could he not feel drowsy when his soul was being harassed? Especially the terrifying erosion speed, which was more than twice as fast as before. This made Yang Tian feel a chill down his spine when he saw this scene. He quickly asked the intelligent computer about the specific situation of the black energy entering his body. The intelligent computer first played a video clip for Yang Tian, which recorded in detail the process of the black energy entering his body, merging with the black energy in his danshan, and finally transforming into a black dog. Then, the mechanical voice of the intelligent computer sounded again. After comprehensive analysis of the latest data and database data, it can be determined that black energy is an element, at the same level as the gold, wood, water, fire, and earth elements, and it is most likely a dark element. Yang Tian was confused. Isn't it the 5 elements? What the hell is this dark element? Isn't this an intrusion? Looking at the dark element still running rampant in his body, Yang Tian hurriedly asked, but why is this dark element out of control? The intelligent brain replied, because the host has not analyzed any dark element magical creatures, the dark elements have not established a real connection with the host at present. Hearing this answer, Yang Tian rolled his eyes in anger. Isn't this just a guest? You eat my food, live in my house, and you want to torment me? And you want to analyze a magical creature of dark elements? Do you have the life to live that long? With the speed of destruction of this damn dark element, it will probably take less than a month for me to die. But he still asked, can you analyze which magical animal has the dark attribute? After a moment, the intelligent computer replied, according to the comprehensive investigation of the database, the Thestrals are confirmed to be magical creatures of the dark element. Well, no matter what, we have to get a Thestral as a preparation. Yang Tian thought for a long time and finally made a decision. In fact, he had a vague plan. As the day of Grindelows analysis was approaching, Yang Tian had a strong premonition. That is, the gathering of the 5 elements this time would likely lead to a magic riot. If this was true, then he could get a Thestral before the analysis was completed. By then, relying on the accelerated analysis, he could complete the analysis of the Thestral and save his life. After figuring out the key link, Yang Tian felt a little more at ease. At this time, he finally turned his attention to the orphanage's supercomputer data. These seemingly messy data sets and diary-like miscellaneous descriptions made Yang Tian suffer a lot. He only looked at it for a while before he gave up. Fortunately, the intelligent brain gave an accurate judgment after summarizing and screening, and produced a detailed analysis report. After seeing this report, Yang Tian felt sick. This orphanage is a branch of the Sarek organization, and is known as the Juvenile Army. This organization was established after Sarek obtained the largest fragment of the famous Ansissim meteorite through secret channels. After nearly 100 years of research, the scientists of the institute finally found a method to transform ordinary people into wizards. This method is achieved by injecting the stray energy of meteorites into the human body for a long time and strictly controlling the dosage and cycle. Unfortunately, the success rate of this method is extremely low. How low is it? It can be said that the probability is 1 in 100,000. Moreover, the prerequisites for this method are extremely harsh: young age, strong physique, and strong will. Of course, these are just basic conditions. Even if these conditions are met, there is no guarantee that one can be transformed into a wizard. And those who fail to successfully transform into wizards will have only one fate, being assimilated to death by dark elements, and the death is extremely tragic. This is also the reason why the youth army has always been so sparsely populated. Just imagine, to create a wizard, 100,000 children have to die. Who can afford such a loss? However, scientists have also discovered that this meteorite is more helpful to people with wizard blood. On the one hand, after being transformed by the meteorite, some young squibs can restore their ability to cast spells. But the fate of squibs who fail to restore their magic power is still a tragic death. On the other hand, meteorites also have huge benefits for ordinary wizards. After being injected into the body, they can make ordinary wizards more compatible with the use of black magic and greatly increase the damage of black magic. Of course, this method also has its drawbacks. The wizard who is enhanced by injecting dark elements will have his body and soul eroded. If he cannot resist, he will eventually be on the road to complete destruction. This is also the reason why this orphanage has never been taken seriously. The output is low and the disadvantages are great. If the headquarters had not always hoped that scientists could increase the success rate or reduce side effects through massive experiments, this institution would have been disbanded long ago. After figuring out the whole story, Yang Tian couldn't help but feel shocked. This Sarek was truly an evil organization. Muggles or wizards, as long as they could achieve their goals, they didn't seem to mind sacrificing anyone. While he was thinking, the intelligent brain sent another piece of information to Yang Tian's mind. It was a list of all the people in the orphanage, including their basic information such as name, age, and length, as well as their detailed experience. Seeing this, Yang Tian couldn't help but curl up his lips slightly. It seemed that one less troublesome thing was happening. Chapter 145. After resolving all the doubts in his heart, Yang Tian finally woke up slowly. As soon as he opened his eyes, the three women's joy and relief came into his sight. But after they cheered involuntarily, Hermione's expression suddenly became complicated, a little ashamed, and a little aggrieved. Seeing this, Yang Tian knew what the little girl was thinking. He asked gently, "Have you figured it out?" Instead of being scolded, Hermione felt a little bored. She replied with a little depression, "Yang Tian, I think it through. I was wrong about this matter. I really didn't expect the world to be so dangerous." Hearing this, Yang Tian explained, "Hermione, cheer up. The world is not that dark, there are more beautiful things. Think about your parents and those around you. Are they the ones worth protecting? But it is precisely because of this that you should maintain a minimum level of vigilance against the unknown. Don't put yourself and the people you want to protect in danger for the sake of superficial justice." Hermione thought about it carefully again, then smiled and said, "I think I really understand. Okay, I think we should go." Before Yang Tian could finish his words, old Xia and others hurriedly pushed the door open. Looking at the young master who had already woken up, old Xia said happily, "When I heard the cheers just now, I guessed that you had woken up, and it turned out to be true." Everyone in the Yang family also hurried forward to ask about his physical condition. Yang Tian's mind moved, and he quickly said that the black energy might be the dark element. Elder Xia suddenly exclaimed, "Dark element? Are you sure it is a dark element?" Hearing this, Yang Tian was shocked and doubtful, but he still nodded heavily. Old Xia seemed to be lost in thought. He muttered, "Fire creates earth, fire creates earth." Yang Tian couldn't stand this nonsense anymore. Just when he wanted to continue asking, old Xia suddenly got up and dragged him away. In a separate room next door, Elder Xia carefully examined Yang Tian's body before he said solemnly, "Xiao Tian, what I am going to say next is about the Yang family's untold secrets of cultivation. Your grandfather should have told you personally, but something like this happened to you, so I had to do it out of urgency. But you must remember that these secrets must not be leaked out in any case. Don't worry, Grandpa Xia. I'll keep my mouth shut." Yang Tian said confidently. Elder Xia was relieved to hear this and said, "I believe you should be very clear that most of the cultivation families and sects in China practice based on the 5 elements. But what I want to tell you is that the Yang family is not one of them. Or it can be said that the families and sects that get inspiration for cultivation from spiritual herbs and exotic animals are not one of them. It's just that with the vicissitudes of time, they have to become one in the end." Looking at the young master who was already somewhat confused, Elder Xia continued to explain, "These things involve the secrets of the cultivation world, you just need to have a general outline. Now let me first let you know what the dark element is. We all say that fire produces earth, why? Because fire is hot, burning completely into ashes, and ashes are earth, so fire produces earth. But in the Yang family's collection of books, there is another explanation, fire produces earth and emits smoke, and smoke is filthy and dark. Fuck, a kind of plant." Yang Tian cursed directly, "Can it be explained this way? Is there a light element? Of course, earth produces gold, which in turn produces light. Think about it, gold is hidden in the soil and stones, and gold is extracted after smelting. This smelting process will naturally produce light. Old Xia said confidently. Yang Tian was completely hesitant now. This was far from what he had always known. Seeing this, Old Xia laughed and said, I knew you would have this expression. That's because you don't know the history of the Yang family. When you return to the family, you will find out the details by yourself by looking up the classics. After that, he changed the subject. Now that we understand what the dark element is, the question now is how to resolve it. Among all the elements, the dark element is known for its weirdness, destruction, and erosion. There are only two ways to resolve it. One is to use force to subdue it with other elements of higher form and forcibly expel it, but according to my internal vision just now, this way is not feasible. The second is your old specialty, to draw a dark element beast, which is what the West calls a magical creature. However, the bad news is that there should be no pure dark element beasts in China at present, so. Although Old Xia didn't finish his words, Yang Tian already understood. He had to deal with this magical creature of dark element by himself. But that didn't matter. Didn't the intelligent computer give him an answer just now? A nightmare, I think I can still handle it. But he took Old Xia's words to heart. Grandpa Xia, why doesn't China have any pure dark elemental beasts? Elder Xia smiled bitterly and said, it's not that there aren't any, but the beasts with pure dark elements have either become extinct or evolved into multi-element beasts. Let's put it this way, in the Yang family's classics, light, darkness, thunder, ice, and wind are the mutant elements generated when the 5 elements are generated, and they are listed alongside the 5 elements. But these words are not allowed in the Chinese cultivation world, and the mainstream of cultivation still respects the 5 elements alone. Of course, the beasts of thunder, ice, and wind are fine. After all, these 3 elements have been given different meanings in various mainstream theories. But the elements of light and darkness are excluded from the mainstream theories of China. Especially the beasts of dark element. The famous ones in ancient times include Hundun, Qiangqi, Tao Wu, Tao Tai. Think about it, how can such a vicious creature have a good end in China? We must eradicate all evil. Therefore, with the passage of time, the pure dark element beasts gradually disappeared in the long river of history. Yang Tian finally understood it completely now. The key point is to eradicate all evil. So he hurriedly said, Grandpa Xia, don't worry. This is not a big problem. I can get a magical creature with pure dark elements. Elder Xia was overjoyed when he heard this. Really? That's great. Your grandfather had originally prepared an ice silkworm for you. After your 5 elements converged, you would start practicing the ice element. It seems that this plan needs to be postponed. After a pause, he quickly added, no matter what, we have to wait until the 5 elements converge before we start practicing the dark elements. Otherwise, the 5 elements will be unbalanced and our foundation will be destroyed. Yang Tian nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. Of course, without the magic riot when the 5 elements converge, how could the analysis of the dark elements be completed in a short time? Well, now that they have unified their thoughts and understood the direction of their next practice, Yang Tian quickly adjusted his mood and turned his attention to the group of captives. Chapter 146. Yang Tian led everyone to the largest room on the 2nd floor. Unlike before, everyone was dressed in nightmare squad uniforms, wrapping themselves tightly. As soon as everyone sat down, Old Xia took out a small tower. With a slight wave of his hand, the little wizards who had cast spells to attack Hermione appeared in the room from the tower. 8 children in total. They looked at everyone with anger, sneers, or disdain, but there was no fear in their expressions. Sandy? Silly boy who thinks you are an orphan? Do you want to know who your parents are? Completely ignoring the hypocritical attitude of the little wizards, Yang Tianfeng looked at a leader-like boy and asked calmly. Don't try to deceive me with your clumsy lies. I have been an orphan since I was a child. I know the organization better than you do. Sandy said fiercely. Come on, there's no need for me to lie to you, right? Do you really think those children who die every day are not strong enough or have weak wills? Do you really think you guys who have achieved wizarding abilities are the chosen ones? Don't be ridiculous. You just have a better father and mother than others. Yang Tian's words were merciless. You're talking nonsense. The little wizards roared in anger. They felt deeply humiliated. Yang Tian didn't care about the shouting at all. He continued to ask, Shandy, oh, no, it should be called Sandy guys, a Frenchman, his father is Matthew guys, and his mother is Guinevere Lestrange. Of course, I mean the main family of the French Lestrange. Do you know where they are now? Seeing the boy stop talking in mockery, Yang Tian said with a smile, the records show that he should have joined the youth army at the age of 5, and there is a record of him being cast with the forgetting spell. There was no need for the young master to continue speaking. The drunkard of the 5 idiots came to the boy. He took out the white jade slab and injected energy into it. When the slab shone brightly on Shandy's head, he heard a scream of awe. The stubborn little boy had already squatted on the ground with his hands holding his head. After a while, Sandy's body began to tremble constantly, with the amplitude becoming stronger and stronger, and finally he burst into tears heartbreakingly. The beast-like crying lasted for an unknown amount of time before it slowly stopped. Shandy finally asked in a trembling voice, are they still alive? Yang Tian's expression suddenly became serious and he said, no, they died 3 years ago. As experimental materials, they were studied for 4 years. Stop talking. Before he could finish his words, Shandy interrupted him with a roar. The next moment, his body went limp and he passed out. Faced with such a scene, Yang Tian remained unmoved. He then turned to another boy calmly and said, Janosch Bathory. Just like this, Yang Tian, like a cold machine, tore apart the hearts of the 8 young wizards one by one, crushed them, and made them collapse. Do we have a chance to take revenge? This was the first sentence Sandy said after waking up from unconsciousness. Do you have this ability? Yang Tian's words were still cold. Then can we join you? I am willing to give everything as long as we can eradicate those demons. Sandy said firmly, and his words also caused the other 7 friends to echo. But why should I believe you? Yang Tian asked back unmoved. The atmosphere at the scene stagnated. Hermione seemed to want to say something, but she firmly closed her mouth. These little wizards were naturally used to the law of the jungle, so how could they not see the situation clearly? Several of them exchanged glances with each other, and finally Shandy asked, tell me, how can you trust us? Yang Tian did not say anything more, but made a stop gesture. Old Xia understood, and with another move of his left hand, the young wizards were called back to the small tower. These children are not even 11 years old yet, and they are descendants of ancient nobles from various countries. If they can be trained, they will be a great help. Old Xia seemed to be sighing and making a statement. Yang Tian also immediately expressed his opinion, let me think about this matter again. It must be used, but how to use it and how to ensure that it will not be backfired requires careful consideration. It's not Yang Tian's fault for being suspicious. These children have been living in a hellish environment of intrigue and deception since they were young. If they are not careful, they may lose their lives. That's the real meaning of human life being worthless. Which child who grew up in such an environment is not a deep-minded person? Did they really sell themselves out for revenge? I don't know whether others believe it or not, but Yang Tian doesn't believe it. Elder Xia no longer dwelled on this question, but instead asked, young master, who are you going to interrogate next? Hearing this, Yang Tian touched his temple with the ancient magic wand and pulled it gently, and a strand of silver thread flew out. He pointed the magic wand again, and the silver thread turned into a portrait floating in front of everyone. It was a white-haired old man with a huge scar on his left cheek. At this time, Yang Tianke asked, see if this person is among the prisoners. Old Xia scanned the tower and said, yes. Then he waved his hand and a dull old man appeared on the tower. As expected, they were exactly the same. Yang Tian's eyes narrowed as he said, this person is very important. You must keep a close watch on him and never let him wake up. At the same time, check his entire body, inside and outside. Find all the restrictions on his body and record them. Don't rush to treat him. Upon hearing this, everyone in the Yang family nodded in agreement without asking the reason. But Yang Tian still explained, this man is called Sebastian, and he is the supreme commander of this orphanage. He is a muggle, so he was also under the spell of enchantment at the time and could not exercise command. If not for this, we might not have won so easily. Kaiho was very excited when she heard this and said, great. This is the first time we have captured such an important person. If we can pry open his mouth, the harvest will be huge. After a pause, she asked, Mr. Xia, do you want to transfer someone from our criminal court? This opportunity is rare. Perhaps it would be safer to bring him directly back to the Yang family for interrogation. Old Xia hesitated, touching his chin. Yang Tian made a prompt decision and said, let's transfer someone here. After all, the family doesn't know much about Saruk. Even if they have excellent interrogation skills, they can't determine the authenticity of the information they get. My father has an interrogation expert named Eulalia, who knows Saruk very well. Let her cooperate with the family members, and I believe they can pry open his mouth. Seeing everyone nodding, Yang Tian continued, in addition, every person captured alive must be carefully interrogated, and no details should be missed. It would be best if we could find the appearance of the children who had been in the orphanage from their memories. Let me write to my parents to discuss whether Eulalia can be transferred here first. After all, the workload is very heavy. Seeing everyone's puzzled expressions, Yang Tian explained, this orphanage is actually a talent training base. Only by becoming a wizard can you leave that hellhole alive. The same is true for the 8 little wizards just now. According to convention, they will soon be transferred to other departments. After the transfer, the little wizards' files will be kept in the orphanage for 1 year and will be completely destroyed after 1 year. Currently, there is only one person in the to be destroyed file on the orphanage's computer. He is a teenager named Fabian. You may say you don't know him, but look at his appearance. As he spoke, Yang Tian used his magic wand to take out another strand of silver thread from his brain and transformed it into a human figure. Blaze Zabanai! The 3 women exclaimed almost in unison. That's right. His file shows that he is a genuine Muggle experiment, with a 1 in 100,000 chance of becoming a wizard. So how could he be Madame Zabanai's biological son? And with such a precedent, I have every reason to suspect that all these mysterious black hands in our Hogwarts came from this young army. Files can be destroyed and data can be deleted, but human memory is not so easy to erase. Didn't we just lift the forgetfulness spell on those 8 children? Of course, this old guy Sebastian must know a lot of secrets, but I have a feeling that it won't be easy to take him down. So let's just pick the soft persimmon first. Everyone burst into laughter when they heard this. Chapter 147. He was also worried that the little actors at the banquet might cause trouble, so after Yang Tian muttered all the problems he could think of at the moment, he hurriedly took the 3 girls back to the abandoned classroom. As soon as I entered the classroom, I saw Pansy pacing back and forth like an ant on a hot pot. The little girl saw everyone coming back and rushed forward as if she saw a savior and said, "You're finally back. I've only been back for about 10 minutes, and now everyone is barely holding on." According to Parvati, when Neville played you, he only knew how to eat. Daphne wasn't as knowledgeable as Hermione, Hannah was okay, very friendly, but she also lacked the teasing ability of the senior. Perhaps the only one who didn't look out of place was Padma, played by Parvati, right? The 4 people who had just returned twitched their lips when they heard this. Yang Tian quickly said, "Let Meng Meng Jiao send the signal to exchange identities immediately. Let's act according to the plan." After hearing this, Pansy finally rushed out with a sense of relief, but no one noticed the pain and unwillingness she felt after turning away. About 10 minutes later, Yang Tian finally put down his knife and fork after using the bathroom, and happily chatted with Professor Flitwick. Hermione, Penelope and Padma finally returned to their comfort zone, each showing their own style. Zhangqiu wiped the cold sweat and picked up the knife and fork. The celebration banquet finally returned to its original state, and the atmosphere gradually reached a climax. At 8 o'clock that evening, in the magnificent office of the Saruk headquarters deep underground in the suburbs of London, Russell, dressed in a red wizard robe, sat on the sofa with a cold face. He leaned forward slightly, with the wand in his hand pressed firmly against Felix's forehead. The magical light that appeared and disappeared from the tip of the wand seemed to tell of the anger in the wand's owner's heart. Felix was already kneeling on the ground, trembling all over. Russell finally spoke, "Felix, I seem to have made a foolish decision. I should have asked you to stay with your predecessor, Mr. Harris, when the 4 bases were attacked last time. In that case, the organization might not have suffered such a huge loss." Felix trembled even more violently after hearing this, but he still defended himself. "Mr. Russell, please believe me, this matter is definitely not that simple. Do I need your nonsense? Don't I know it's not simple? Where's my meteorite? Where's my information? Where's my young army? You tell me it's not simple." Russell was completely furious. Every time he asked a question, he would cast a cruciatous curse into the other person's body. Felix's mouth was bleeding, his face was pale, and his whole body was in unbearable pain. But he didn't dare to make even a scream. He still trembled and tried to explain. My lord, we have sealed off all of the Malfoy family's businesses in the Muggle world. It is inevitable that they will retaliate. But during the Wizarding War, we cooperated too closely with the Dark Lord. We have no idea what kind of agents the Dark Lord has planted, let alone which departments he has infiltrated. In this case, passive defense is simply not an option. Oh? Are you complaining to me? Russell did not stop casting the Cruciatus curse. Of course not, Lord Luosu, I think we can't passively defend now. We have to take the initiative to attack in order to have a chance of winning. Felix was willing to risk his life to survive. Tell me about your specific ideas. Russell finally stopped what he was doing and pretended to listen carefully. Since they are so ruthless, we will send people to besiege Malfoy Manor. Of course, this is actually just a trap. When the families of the core members of the Death Eaters are besieged, that mysterious force will definitely show up, and we can use this opportunity to completely eliminate them. Felix said passionately. Russell's anger seemed to have disappeared. He gently patted his old subordinate on the shoulder and said, I have to say, Felix, I am very satisfied with your performance since you took over this position. At least you have uncovered the real culprit behind the scenes. Felix heard this and said with tears in his eyes, for the organization, I am willing to sacrifice everything. Very good, Felix, I feel your loyalty. I also firmly believe that you will play an incomparable role in any position. After a pause, Russell continued, how about this, I will arrange for you to accompany your predecessor Mr. Harris. I believe you will be loyal to the organization there. As he spoke, he lightly tapped his wand, and Felix's body instantly stiffened. Looking at the fate of this subordinate who had followed him for a long time, Russell seemed to be quite emotional, and kept muttering, I have to say, the continuous failures have made you confused. For your own life, you can even throw away the principles of the organization at will. You really want to die? If you really act according to your plan, can the organization still hide? Those bastards will probably choose to riot directly, right? This position is really hard to hold. It's only been a few years. 2 idiots have already fallen one after another. Who should I find to take over? Maybe it's time to let those bastards who enjoy a good life come back. This new generation is really not worth using. At almost the same time, in a secret room in Malfoy Manor in Wiltshire, England, Lucius Malfoy, a pale man with long flowing platinum hair, was having a secret conversation with a man with unusually greasy hair. Mr. Borgin, you agreed to my previous request. How come there is still no result after such a long time? Lucius asked with a gloomy face. Oh, my dear Lucius, we are old friends. Don't always act like a official. You should know that I am only the owner of Borgin and Burke's magic shop, and my ability is limited. A voice greasier than his hair came out. Don't give me that. Lucius interrupted the other party without regard for etiquette and said, Borgin is, but Burke is not. We have been friends for many years, so let's talk frankly. What I want now is the result. Wow, it seems that Mr. Lucius is really desperate. No wonder, all the property of the Malfoy family in the Muggle world, ha ha ha. Mr. Borgin was unmoved and continued to tease, we are businessmen, double the commission, maybe there will be good news soon. I have to say, Mr. Borgin is still the same bastard as always, but I like it. How about this, as long as you achieve your goal, I will double your salary. Lucius instantly regained his arrogant attitude. What a truly generous employer. In that case, Borgin and Burks will be honest and give you a small gift. In addition to the 6 corpses of a mysterious organization disguised as Death Eaters that I promised you. I'll give you one more living person. Mr. Borgin's words were full of pride. Really? You actually caught him alive? Lucius was shocked at first, and then he was ecstatic. Mr. Lucius, don't be happy too soon. We also launched a surprise attack and knocked the enemy unconscious. There were originally 2 survivors, but one of them woke up and committed suicide. So how you keep this one alive now depends on you. However, it should be enough to put pressure on the Ministry of Magic and restore its reputation. So, happy cooperation. After Mr. Borgin's explanation, he twisted his fingers in a mercenary manner and made a gesture of counting money. Lucius laughed out loud at this and happily took out 3 money bags. Chapter 148. On Sunday morning, after Yang Tian got up, he rushed to Hagrid's hut with a book in his hand. There was no other way. In this tense moment when his life could be at stake, the first thing to do was to catch the Thestral in his own hands. But he didn't know much about the thestrals. Even if it wasn't difficult to get a thestral from his grandfather, who knew if the thestral could perform a perfect analysis. When the thestrals performed the analysis of the half-moon, wasn't it because of a silencing spell that the analysis of the fate line was affected? This time, it was a matter of life and death, and he was ready to take advantage of the magic riot to complete it in one fell swoop. In that case, what else is there to say? Yang Tian naturally wants to find Hagrid, an expert on magical animals, to learn first-hand information about the thestrals. Hi, Yang Tian, I received the message from Meng Meng Jiao last night. I was so excited the whole night. Welcome to my home. Hagrid's rough voice sounded at the right time. Thank you, Hagrid. Actually, I've wanted to come over and play for a long time. This is my gift. After saying that, he handed over the book. Seeing Hagrid's slightly dissatisfied expression, Yang Tian said playfully, "Oh, what's that look? This is an illustrated book of some magical animals in China. Are you sure you don't want it?" "What? Fantastic Beasts illustrated book? Of course I need it. Come in and sit down." Hagrid scratched his head embarrassedly and hurriedly let Yang Tian into the house. However, the moment their bodies crossed, the illustrated book ran into Hagrid's hands. Yang Tian didn't take it seriously, instead he happily chatted with Hagrid. Hagrid couldn't put the illustrated book down and kept asking for more details. Yang Tian naturally told him everything he knew. Finally, when Hagrid was about to take a break after flipping through the halfway point of the illustrated book, Yang Tian asked casually, "Hagrid, do you know any thestrals?" "Of course, I am still confident in magical creatures. How should I put it? This is a gentle but very pitiful little fellow. Just because it is associated with death, it is misunderstood and alienated by many people." Hagrid seemed indignant about the experience of the thestrals, but only people who have seen death can see the thestrals. "Are you sure you can see them?" "Of course, I can see them." "That's not a good experience, is it?" After a pause, Yang Tian asked, "Is it difficult to buy a thestral?" "Sorry, I don't want to mention your sad story." "Oh, I mean, that's not difficult, as long as you have enough gold galleons and the corresponding status. Of course, ordinary people don't even think about it. After all, it's not an easy task to completely seal the death aura in the thestrals. And few people can stand the thestrals that exude death aura, right? Even I feel a chill when facing them." As he spoke, Hagrid shuddered inadvertently. As expected, Yang Tian thought to himself when he heard this. "Then do you know how to get a wild thestral?" Yang Tian asked persistently. "Oh, get wild thestrals? That depends on whether these little guys like you. There are two ways to capture thestrals, one is to attack with force, the other is to use wits. The thestral's favorite food is a magical plant called ghost grass. When you encounter wild thestrals, you will gain their favor by feeding them ghost grass, and then..." Hagrid patiently explained how to get the thestrals. Of course, luck is a minority after all. At this time, you need to use force. After Hagrid's careful explanation, Yang Tian finally grasped the method of capture. But he continued to ask, "Then you should know where the thestrals live, right?" "Of course I know that. Apart from other things, there are traces of them in our forbidden forest. After all, the forest is the favorite environment of the thestrals. It's just that due to their special characteristics, they live on one side of the forbidden forest." Until this moment, the slightly slow Hagrid finally discovered the problem. He asked hurriedly, "Yang Tian, what do you want to do? You know you can't enter the forbidden forest again." "Hagrid, as a friend who has shared life and death with me, can I trust you?" Yang Tian played the emotional card by asking instead of answering. "Of course, Yang Tian, we have experienced life and death together. But..." Hagrid tried to make an excuse. "Then I solemnly ask you, Hagrid. I really need your help this time. I need a thestral, and a thestral that has not been sealed with death energy." Seeing Hagrid want to speak again, Yang Tian interrupted directly, "Please listen to me first. I am not fooling around, nor am I joking. This matter is directly related to my Chinese magic training. I must find it as quickly as possible, otherwise it may even endanger my life. Are you willing to believe me? Is it really that serious?" Hagrid was startled. After a long while, he said in a tangled manner, "But it's not easy. Thestrals live deep in the forbidden forest, and the unsealed thestrals don't like sunlight, so they don't show up during the day. They only bathe in the moonlight at night. But even if we exclude the bastards from the mysterious organization, the Forbidden Forest alone has been extremely unstable recently. It's too dangerous. Is it still the matter of hunting unicorns that we talked about last time? Has the murderer not been caught yet? Yang Tian asked, puzzled. Oh, the murderer is so cunning. After you talked about it last time, I told Dumbledore the whole story. Dumbledore also went on patrol several times, and the Forbidden Forest was indeed quiet for a while. But recently, the murderer seems to be stirring again. I found that there are often traces of reconnaissance near the gathering places of unicorns. I am still hesitating whether to report this situation to Dumbledore again. Hagrid looked unwilling. You can report again tomorrow. Tonight, help me get a thestral. Hagrid, I'm not a person who likes to cause trouble to my friends, but this time, I really need your help. Yang Tian said firmly. Okay, I'll help you this time. Who asked you to do it? I'll wait for you at 10 o'clock tonight. Hagrid promised solemnly. In the afternoon, in the abandoned classroom, all the members of the study group except Pansy and Daphne gathered together. Everyone looked solemn as they listened to Hermione, Penelope, and Padma share their experiences and insights of this trip. Perhaps the bloody truth was too heavy, the atmosphere at the scene was very depressing. Do you know how sad I was when I saw the bodies of those children hanging on the cross? The people in this organization are all crazy. They don't treat us as human beings at all. Hermione recounted her own mental journey. Yes, this evil organization is simply terrifying. We all know that they target wizards, but are they willing to take a chance with a 1 in 100,000 chance? That's 100,000 lives. Padma said indignantly. We should call on more like-minded friends to act together and completely destroy this organization. Hannah said firmly. Believe me, I think the most important thing we should do now is to work hard to improve our strength, especially our combat ability. Penelope said firmly. The cruelty of the evil organization is indeed frightening. But I saw the huge gap between us and Yang Tian. It is no exaggeration to say that during the entire battle, the three of us were just a burden. Don't say we are still young. In the same battle, although Yang Tian didn't have many opportunities to attack, every time he attacked, he was able to change the situation. So we haven't practiced enough. I suggest that we add a practical training class every 2 days to improve our practical level. Penelope's words were quickly responded to. Parvati was already angry about not being able to participate in this battle, and now she was even more indignant and said, Yes, I support this proposal. I don't ask how much we can help, but we must not be a drag. The other friends echoed. Seeing this, Yang Tian said cunningly, in this case, should we start practicing? It seems that our hot pot feast will be postponed again. It's not that I'm stingy, it's just that everyone's fighting spirit is too high. After saying this, he burst into laughter. He thought that this remark would arouse everyone's appetite and make them laugh. But this time, it didn't. Neville put his arm around Yang Tian's shoulders and said, Yang Tian, start training. I want to become stronger. Yes, we all want to become stronger. Chapter 149. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Yang Tian appeared at Hagrid's hut on time wearing a Chinese short nightgown. Wow, cool, this outfit is really interesting. It's hard to be discovered in the dark. Hagrid exclaimed. Haha, this is the standard attire for people in China who kill and rob people when the moon is dark and windy. I asked Aunt Kiu to make it for me for a long time. Yang Tian teased with interest. Hehe, you're not the only one who is prepared. Look at me. Hagrid said unconvinced. After that, he put on a cloak made of leaves. Yang Tian took a closer look and it looked a bit like a ghillie suit. Before he could sigh, Hagrid's loud voice sounded again, well, let's go. We still have a long way to go, and we don't have much time. Yang Tian did not dare to neglect it after hearing this, and the two of them walked towards the depths of the Forbidden Forest while talking and laughing. After walking for nearly an hour, Yang Tian and Hagrid finally came to a rocky area. The two climbed up the rocks and their destination was just ahead. However, they saw a row of more than 10 nightmares lazily standing or lying on the green grass, seemingly enjoying the baptism of the moonlight. However, the terrifying death aura emanating from them made the two men fearful even though they were a little far away. Hagrid took out a bunch of grass and said, Here, Yang Tian, this is the ghost grass. Go up and try it out to see if there are any little ones among them that you like. After a pause, he continued, don't worry too much. If they really don't like you, we can think of other ways. Yang Tian didn't say much, picked up the ghost grass and walked up. Suddenly a stranger broke in, and the nightmares all stood up and remained alert. Seeing this, Yang Tian also became more cautious. But what happened next shocked him completely. But when Yang Tian handed the ghost grass to Yuki Mouth, these little guys not only ignored it, but looked at Yang Tian with interest. In an instant, they gathered around him excitedly like old friends who had not seen each other for many years, and kept licking his hand with their tongues. The tallest of the night thestrals was even more enthusiastic and licked Yang Tian's face all over with its big tongue. Yang Tian was confused. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Such a philosophical question made him stunned and ponder for half a minute. Yang Tian is really smart. At this moment, he knew his chance had come. No matter whether the cat is black or white, a cat that catches mice is a good cat, right? Yang Tian followed Hagrid's instructions without hesitation and invited the thestral that was licking his face to join him. Sure enough. The night horse agreed without any hesitation. At this moment, Yang Tian even felt that the whole world belonged to him. After another round of interaction, Yang Tian finally left with his new partner, amid the reluctant gazes of the night chi. Things went so smoothly that Hagrid was stunned. But the big guy thought about it and figured it out. He liked magical creatures so much, so how could his good brother Yang Tian be any worse? Birds of a feather flock together. Isn't this strange? Unconsciously, Yang Tian had become a brother in Hagrid's heart. It must be said that the inner world of the giant is so plain and monotonous. The two of them walked leisurely on the road back to Hogwarts. It must be said that after completing the task, Yang Tian's heart was completely relaxed. In fact, he was the one who understood the reason for today's scene the most. It was not some bullshit personality charm, nor was it good luck. All this was caused by the dark element in his body. As a magical animal with dark attributes, how could a night thestral turn a blind eye to him when the dark element was about to invade his internal organs? But it's good this way, the matter is finally resolved, I can go back to the dormitory and sleep soundly. But at this moment, Hagrid's ears trembled suddenly, and he took a breath with a tense body. The next moment, his face changed drastically, and he rushed out in one step. He kept shouting, Yang Tian, go back and inform the professors, that damn hunter has appeared again, I smell the blood of the unicorn, it can't run anymore. Before he finished speaking, he had disappeared. Yang Tian's mouth curled up when he heard this, full of confidence. Of course he knew what was going to happen next, wasn't Voldemort going to hunt unicorns? But we have the confidence. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of time to ask Xiaolao for advice on how to deal with such situations at noon today? He got a good treasure. But Yang Tian leisurely took out a suitcase from his white jade ring and let Yechi hide inside. He then grabbed a handful of strange little talismans and rushed out leisurely. Not long after he rushed out, he saw a unicorn stumbling towards him, apparently also injured. Behind it, Hagrid was knocked to the ground by a spell, while a strange wizard in wizard robes was half lying on the ground, floating forward like a ghost. Wow, what exactly is this non-human thing? Yang Tian asked sarcastically, knowing the answer already. God, I didn't ask you to. The thick-skinned Hagrid stood up again, but didn't know what to say. Don't worry, Hagrid, leave this ghostly thing to me. Yang Tian comforted. Hagrid was speechless. Where did this kid get his confidence from? It seems that you really don't know who you are facing, but that doesn't matter. I know you, boy from the Foley family, and I will let you taste the despair. Voldemort was obviously completely enraged. Yang Tian remained calm and said, don't be so angry all the time. Today, I will introduce you to a small talisman that is well known to all Chinese people. I guarantee it will open your eyes. As he spoke, he showed the talismans in his hand. Upon hearing this, Voldemort gritted his teeth and said, go to hell with these little yellow pieces of paper of yours. Then he wanted to cast a spell. But he didn't expect that the kid in front of him didn't follow the moral code of martial arts. Voldemort had just said half of his words when the yellow talisman was scattered towards him like flowers from heaven. Fortunately, Voldemort reacted very quickly and flashed away like a ghost in an instant. But the number of these small talismans was really terrifying, and the coverage area was large enough. Although Voldemort had tried his best, he was still touched by several small talismans. He heard a scream of awe, and Voldemort's black shadow actually emitted black smoke as if it was burnt. "Bastard, what on earth is that? Why can it hurt me?" Voldemort said hysterically. "Look, isn't this the consequence of not paying attention? I was just about to introduce you and you interrupted me. You have to pay attention to classroom discipline this time. This is the well-known exorcist talisman in China, which is specially used to deal with some little ghosts. My aunt prepared a lot of this stuff for me." Before he finished speaking, Yang Tian threw out another handful. This time, the number of exorcists was greater and the range was larger. There were several more screams, and the black shadow seemed a lot less illusory. "Asshole! Little devil, I won't let you go, nor will I let the unicorn go. I will kill you the next time we meet." Feeling the condition of his body, Voldemort roared angrily, but he also knew that he had to go. The next moment, the shadow roared in anger. It swirled around and finally disappeared into the depths of the woods. Chapter 150. Seeing that Yang Tian had driven away the terrifying black shadow easily, Hagrid seemed very excited. Feeling his not too serious skin injuries, he quickly came to Yang Tian and said, "Wow, Tian, what are those little yellow papers of yours? Can you give me some? Next time I meet this monster, I will have a way to deal with him." As he spoke, he waved his fist vigorously to show his determination. "Of course, my brother. This is a kind of ghost exorcising talisman from my hometown. It has no harm to ordinary people, but it has miraculous effects on some ghosts. I just gave it a try, but I didn't expect the effect to be so good." As he said that, he took out 2 handfuls and stuffed them into Hagrid's hands. "But you must be careful. This talisman is not that magical. It can only be used under certain conditions. If you encounter that monster, you should focus on running." Yang Tian reminded him tirelessly. In fact, Yang Tian was not being modest. This exorcist talisman could certainly hurt Voldemort's soul body, and could also cause Professor Quirrell's body, which seemed to be possessed by a ghost, to reject the soul, but this did not mean that the exorcist talisman could not be cracked. Apart from anything else, the armor charm alone could isolate this inconspicuous little talisman from the outside and make it useless. Of course, if Voldemort had really done this at the time, Yang Tian would have had other ways to deal with him. After all, old Xia gave him more than one talisman. However, Voldemort obviously did not understand the Chinese talismans, and he underestimated his enemy and suffered heavy damage, so he had to flee in a hurry. After all, he really couldn't afford to lose now. But Hagrid, who got the talisman, was as happy as a baby weighing several hundred pounds. While he and Yang Tian were walking towards Hogwarts, he was fiddling with his new toys from time to time. But inadvertently, he discovered that a wounded unicorn was following them from a distance. "What's wrong, little one? Why are you following us?" Hagrid greeted in a friendly manner. But the unicorn ignored him and instead glanced at Yang Tian from time to time. Yang Tian was also very curious when he saw this. He asked gently, "So are you following me?" The unicorn reacted this time, but it seemed to be repelled by Yang Tian. It nodded stiffly and took a few steps back. Hagrid seemed to be afraid that Yang Tian would misunderstand the little guy, so he quickly explained, "Unicorns are like this, they only like pure girls." Yang Tian naturally agreed with this statement, but he couldn't help but murmur in his heart, "It goes without saying that he likes pure girls, but the more important thing is that as a magical creature of the light element, he should be naturally averse to the dark element in his body, right?" But he was not dissatisfied. The incompatibility of attributes was not the problem of the little unicorn. He guessed what the unicorn was thinking after a little thought, so he asked, "Are you afraid of that monster just now?" The little fellow tapped his forehooves nervously and nodded. "Do you want to be my partner?" Yang Tian asked tentatively again. The unicorn was stunned when he heard that, and the next moment, he turned his head away and stopped looking at Yang Tian. My goodness, this guy just wants power but doesn't want responsibility. How could Yang Tian, with his bad temper, tolerate this? "Then I'll provide you with a place to hide from that monster, okay? Don't worry, as long as that monster disappears, we can both go our separate ways, how about that?" At this moment, Yang Tian looked like a big bad wolf luring a little white rabbit. It's not his fault that he has no principles. He picked up a magical creature of light element for free. What's wrong with not getting close to it? At worst, just keep it in reserve. After the fate analysis is completed, who knows who will beg whom? How does that saying go? 30 years in the east, 30 years in the West, don't despise the young and poor. Well, that's off topic. But this time the unicorn nodded happily. Yang Tian didn't waste any words and said to Hagrid, wait for me here. I'll find a place for this little guy in the thestral. Hagrid knew Yang Tian's family background and magical skills, so he didn't think much about it. He nodded and continued to study the small yellow paper. Yang Tian smiled when he saw this, then he took the unicorn to a secluded place, took out the suitcase and planned to let it enter. But now there was a problem. Both the unicorn and the thestral were famous for their good tempers among the magical animals. But when these two little guys got together, it was like a collision between Mars and the Earth. The moment the unicorn walked down the stairs and entered the first floor, it keenly discovered the presence of the thestral. The two sides glared at each other and threatened each other, as if they were about to fight if they disagreed. Yang Tian was really furious. Others knew how many rare materials were in this suitcase, so how could he not know? He would feel bad for a long time if something was broken, so if they were to fight, the consequences would be disastrous. Therefore, Yang Tiankong sternly warned the two mischievous little guys in public, and ordered them to let one live on the second floor and the other on the first floor, and strictly forbid them to jump between floors, and even more so, not to damage anything in the laboratory. Faced with unprecedented pressure, the two little ones had no choice but to accept and live their own lives. Yang Tian was also helpless. This was because the analysis was not completed, otherwise why would it be so troublesome? After solving this series of small troubles, Yang Tian and Hagrid walked more briskly. They soon returned to Hogwarts Castle. After saying good night to each other, they went to bed peacefully. But at the same time, in Professor Quirrell's bedroom in Hogwarts Castle, someone had gone completely crazy. Yang Tian, yes, that's the name. I've always remembered you. The little brat from the Foley family. I wanted to kill you when you were 5 years old. I wanted to kill you even more after that. But after coming to Hogwarts, I suppressed my desire to kill you. Isn't that right? But how have you repaid me? You have ruined my plan once again. You have once again stood against the great Dark Lord. Do you really think that I can't do anything to you just because you are in Hogwarts? It's ridiculous. Voldemort has been venting his dissatisfaction. Master, please calm down. Dumbledore has already been alerted. Let's focus on the mission. After all, the child has a deep background. Once we take action, it is likely to arouse suspicion and bring unnecessary trouble. Professor Quirrell hurriedly dissuaded. Quirrell, you are still so useless. We don't even need to do it ourselves. Is there anyone in this world who is more proficient in the dark arts than me? Others may not know the situation of that little devil, so how could I not know? I can tell what's wrong with him just by smelling him. This kid has dark energy that doesn't belong to him. Does he want to take it for himself? He really doesn't know how to live or die. Let me think about it carefully. Maybe a bottle of lovely dark holy water will be enough. Voldemort seemed to be scolding Quirrell, but also seemed to be talking to himself. And this murmur continued for a long time. Chapter 151. Monday was supposed to be as calm and busy as usual, but an article published in the Daily Prophet caused an uproar. The article was written by Rita Skeeter and was called Who is Making Trouble? Throughout the article, Rita used her sharp pen to tell the story of a group of evil people with ulterior motives pretending to be Death Eaters to create panic and smear the pure blood families who had fought bravely against the black-robed wizards. She fully criticized the Ministry of Magic's inaction and exposed the tragic situation of pure blood nobles shedding blood and tears. At the same time, the news also came with a lot of evidence and magic photos. For a time, the wizarding world was in complete chaos, and all kinds of shouting letters flew to the British Ministry of Magic like snowflakes. What's more, even calls for Minister Fudge to resign were rampant. Such a situation was something these bureaucrats had never expected. In the minister's office on the first floor of the Ministry of Magic, Cornelius Fudge was angrily questioning the director of the Auror office, "What on earth have you been doing recently? Are our Aurors still on vacation overseas? Even the pure blood family was captured alive, but our elite Aurors didn't even see a shadow." Rufus Scrimgeour looked puzzled when he heard this. "Minister, 2 weeks ago I reported the news of the reappearance of the black-robed wizard and requested an in-depth investigation. But the ministry's reply to me at the time was, in order to maintain the stability of the wizarding world, it is not appropriate to conduct excessive investigations." How? The ministry said that excessive investigation is not appropriate. Do you have any misunderstanding about the word excessive? Fudge said without giving in. But Minister. Scrimgeour obviously wanted to rescue him. Well, I'll remember your serious dereliction of duty this time. Fudge interrupted directly, now, immediately investigate the background of the black-robed wizard in the wizarding world, and arrest all those involved. Yes. Scrimgeour immediately took the order and left. After throwing the pot away, Minister Fudge did not look relaxed at all. Instead, he sat alone in his office frowning and thinking. He did not want to cause trouble. He wanted stability. But the premise of stability was that he could keep his position. But what about now? Some people are dissatisfied with him and want to pull him down. Moreover, there are not a few people who hold this idea. Fudge instantly felt that he was forced into a corner. He had to do something, Fudge, who was determined, opened the drawer on the right side of the desk. Half an hour later, in the Prime Minister's study at 10 Downing Street, a man with grey hair and rimmed glasses just stood up tiredly and wanted to stretch his muscles. But he was suddenly frightened and sat back in his chair. He stared at the portrait of Ulick Gamp in front of him with horror, as if he had seen a ghost. But Mr. Gamp in the portrait moved his stiff shoulders and finally spoke, "Please wait in front of the fireplace in this room in half an hour. The Minister of Magic needs to meet with you." Hearing the words Minister of Magic, the Muggle Prime Minister, who was originally inexplicably frightened, suddenly calmed down. He seemed to have realized something and began to think, but his brows were furrowed even tighter. In the next 20 minutes, the Prime Minister urgently met with the military and political ministers, senior elders, the royal envoy, and the head of the intelligence department. Until the end, he locked himself in the study room. Time went on like this until the evening. Outsiders had no idea what the Prime Minister did the whole afternoon. But when the Prime Minister walked out of the study, his face was not very good. He once again called the head of the intelligence department over and said earnestly, "Stella, my term has just been 1 year, so you should know that stability is the most important thing for me now. I don't mind the intelligence department making some small moves, but at the very least, you have to be clean. Don't let anyone use any evidence against you. But what about now? You can inform those troublemakers to keep quiet for now. If you want to cause trouble, just get out of here and leave the country. Now the country only needs one voice, and that is stability." Looking at the silent Stella, the Prime Minister continued, "By the way, we must do a good job of protection during this period, and we must clean up everything that needs to be cleaned up. The other party has made it clear that they will send someone to investigate the relevant situation in person, and they do not rule out the possibility of taking further action. You have to understand that it will be a disaster. None of us can afford this responsibility." Stella, who had been calm at first, narrowed his eyes slightly when he heard this. This time, he responded solemnly, "Prime Minister, please rest assured. We know what to do. However, if the other party goes too far, then we don't be so timid and compromise. Try to cooperate as much as possible without suffering any loss." This was the Prime Minister's final attitude. Yes. Stella's answer was particularly sincere and loud. On the other hand, Minister Fudge, who had just walked around the Ministry of Magic again in the evening, looked equally unhappy. He could not wait to recall Scrimgeour, who had already left work, and then made a series of arrangements in an orderly manner. 1. All Aurors in the Auror office cancel their vacations and focus on investigating the incident involving the black-robed wizard. 2. Send 2 groups of elites, light and dark, into the Muggle world to eradicate the evil organization. 3. Increase the salaries of Aurors and Striker to encourage more wizards to fight to protect the wizarding world. No matter how violent the outside world is, Hogwarts Castle is peaceful. These days, Yang Tian is still studying hard step by step. Not to mention the books in the library, he is only a few bookshelves away from cleaning up the books. Even the analysis of Grindylow is coming to an end. The intelligent computer has given a timetable, which will not exceed 10 days at most. Yang Tian felt so happy. Although the dark element was raging in his body, he could hold on for just 10 days anyway. That day, Yang Tian had just finished her afternoon herbology class when she was informed by a senior that Madame Pants was waiting for her in her lounge, which confused Yang Tian. This librarian was usually very strict, even harsh, and she was particularly unkind to me when I was sweeping books. Was it because of that slanting wind today that she came to find me? However, despite his doubts, Yang Tian still said hello to his friends and went straight to Madame Pants's lounge. Arriving at the door, Yang Tian knocked politely, and after receiving the reply "come in," he pushed the door open and walked in. Chapter 152. As soon as he entered the room, Yang Tian suddenly realized something, because there was no Madame Pants in the room at all, but the charming Madame Zabanai was staring at him with a smile. "I guessed you would come, but I didn't expect you to come in this way. So, Madame Pings is your person?" Yang Tian was not panicked. He casually found a chair and sat down. "Oh, Madame Pants and I have a good personal relationship. It's not too much to do her best friend a small favor, right? But that's not important. Child, what I want to know now is, are you really sure you can cure me?" Madame Zabanai walked lightly in front of Yang Tian. "Aren't you coming to me because you believe I have the ability to heal you? Let's get straight to the point." Yang Tian said calmly. "Very good, then I will get straight to the point and tell you a big secret. I think I know who you are, and I also know that you belong to the small organization that is being hunted. Of course, you should also have guessed my past. Well, in exchange for your treatment of me, I will keep the secret for you. How about it? This deal is very cost-effective." Mrs. Zabanai's eyes suddenly became sharp. "Mrs. Zabanai, are you kidding me? If this is how you talk about business, then I have to take my leave." Yang Tian said as he was about to get up. "You are really tough. Aren't you afraid that I will tell on you?" Mrs. Zabanai refused to give in. "Don't be funny, I'm just an ordinary little wizard. Whatever secret you are talking about has nothing to do with me, and I have no interest in knowing it. You can do whatever you want, I don't want to listen. I'll say it one last time, if you talk to me about these irrelevant things again, I'll turn around and leave." Facing the threat from the woman in front of him, Yang Tianzhen was not panicked at all. With the power behind him now, how could he be so easy to control? "Okay, you win. I really can't beat you. So can you tell me what it will take for me to get treatment? I'm living a nightmare life now, and my body has been corroded to its current state. Can't you be kind and save me from this terrible situation?" Mrs. Zabanai was about to cry as she spoke. Yang Tian may not mind the quiet change of address, but he must give her a thumbs up for her superb acting skills. If the hard way doesn't work, try the soft way? Do you really think I have no temper? Finally, we're getting to the point? Then I'll be frank. I don't trust you. Your condition is too weird. If you want me to treat you, you have to give me a guarantee and let me restrain you. How about this, you submit to me? Yang Tian asked casually. Are you kidding? Me? Submit to you? Zabanai was laughing so hard that his body was shaking, but his eyes were indescribably cold. What else? Do you want to submit to the person who put those restrictions on you? Yang Tian sneered. Mrs. Zabanai's laughter stopped abruptly. This was truly heartbreaking. Speaking of which, my suggestion is actually beneficial to you. Looking at Mrs. Zabanai who was about to speak, Yang Tian spoke first. After you recover from your illness, you have only two choices, either flee far away or seek revenge. You should know my origins, and you should also have seen a little of the strength of the Yang family. If you want to flee far away, the Yang family can provide you with a shelter in China, which is better than hiding from place to place, right? If you choose revenge, the Fulai family and the Yang family will provide you with help, which is better than fighting alone, isn't it? But why should I trust a little kid like you? Mrs. Zabanai said contemptuously. Actually, you don't have to believe me. Then just believe the big devil who put the ban on you. Yang Tian responded easily. You bastard! This was the first time Mrs. Zabanai lost her composure today. Okay, respected Mrs. Zabanai. Let's not waste each other's time. Let's stop here today, shall we? Yang Tian slowly stood up. I hope that when we meet again, you have already made a decision, instead of like today. Of course, I must kindly remind you that if you really decide to let me heal you, surrender is necessary, and it must be surrender from the heart. Oh, by the way, don't try to deceive me. I have ways to identify your loyalty. You must believe in this, just like you believe in my medical skills. You must know that you only have one chance. If you miss it, you really miss it. So, make up your mind to come see me again. After saying that, Yang Tian pushed the door open and left, leaving Mrs. Zabanai alone in deep thought. After leaving the lounge, Yang Tian was so relaxed. He sat on the cloud, humming a song, and pretended to be sitting on the fishing platform. In fact, this was also for outsiders to see. He was afraid that Mrs. Zabanai had other spies watching him. In fact, Yang Tian was not very sure about his ability to subdue Mrs. Zabanai, but if such an important person could really be used by me, the benefits would be obvious. In this case, how could he not try his best? Of course, he was also prepared to fail in the attempt to subdue her. After all, his soul was not strong enough, right? But so what? At worst, he would just stop interacting with her. Her body poison and curse naturally had nothing to do with him. As for the so-called sincerity for sincerity, first save people, then influence them, and finally use them for your own benefit? Sorry, I won't accompany you. There are many informants who have turned against us. Who do you think you are? After making up his mind, Yang Tian on the somersault cloud became more relaxed. In the next few days, Yang Tian continued to complete his daily study tasks in this relaxed and leisurely state. Finally, 5 days later in the afternoon, Yang Tian once again came to the abandoned classroom alone and sat in his familiar seat. He has been doing this for the past few days, taking time out every afternoon to come here to scan the books. He himself is helpless. Looking at the few books left on the library shelves makes him feel uncomfortable, and he even wonders if he has obsessive-compulsive disorder. Fortunately, all this will end today. The few books in the library that have not been scanned are now in front of him. At the latest tonight, he will be able to finish it completely. Of course, except for the restricted book area, Yang Tian has also figured it out. At worst he can find another opportunity. With this thought, Yang Tian quickly immersed himself in the task of scanning books, but he did not notice that a black liquid quietly emerged on the originally bare desk and continued to seep into the skin on his wrist. Yang Tian's immersive book scanning lasted for nearly 40 minutes. When he finished scanning the last page, he breathed a sigh of relief, stood up suddenly and cheered loudly, "It's done, I'm going to open champagne tonight to celebrate." But at this moment, he suddenly realized something was wrong. Facing the light, he saw that his hands were actually as black as ink. Not only that, a sharp pain suddenly came from his dantian, and in an instant it spread throughout his internal organs, and even his consciousness became dizzy in an instant. If someone could look inside at this time, he would definitely see that the black dog in Yang Tian's dantian, which was originally quite quiet, was now running around like it had taken stimulants. All his organs were destroyed in an instant, and the black dog was entangled with his soul, as if it would never stop until death. Yang Tian didn't have time to look inside himself in a hurry, but he still instinctively used the spring breeze and rain technique to repair his body. He poured the healing potion into his mouth without paying. His idea was correct, and the black dog's attack was instantly stagnant. But unfortunately, the speed of repair was far less than the speed of destruction. "Yang Tian, what's wrong with you?" At this critical moment, the exclamations of the friends suddenly came. Yang Tian felt relieved when he heard this. He only had time to say "Old Xia" before he fell into darkness. Before he fainted, he seemed to hear a ding from the brain, but unfortunately. Chapter 153. When Yang Tian regained consciousness again, he was in the Hogwarts ward, but he had no strength to open his eyes, and couldn't even move. At this time, his bed was crowded with people, including his parents, grandparents, Old Xia, Kai Lianjiu, Waki, and a group of friends. They all looked at the unconscious little guy with worried eyes. Among them, Pansy and Daphne were the most terrified. As Yang Tian's condition deteriorated, the two women were horrified to find that their souls were actually freezing. It seemed that their lives were already bound to that demon. No wonder Yang Tian once inadvertently said, "If I die, you can't live either." But at this moment, the door was pushed open again. Dumbledore came in with the 4 deans. "How is it? Is Yang Tian awake?" Dumbledore asked first, but received no response. Professor McGonagall nervously stepped forward to check the situation, and asked with a slightly embarrassed and puzzled tone, "Did you find any specific problems?" This question seemed to have ignited a powder keg. Grandma Rosalind immediately said, "Of course it was found. That's why I'm curious, why would Hogwarts have dark holy water? Hasn't this material been banned for many years? Dark holy water? How is that possible? Wasn't the secret recipe for purifying dark holy water from the corpses of wizards banned and lost long ago? Why would such a thing appear again? Moreover, the purpose of this dark holy water is to enlighten dark wizards. Although it has certain risks, it will never cause this kind of harm." Professor Snape, the master of potions, asked in disbelief. Seeing Rosalind's puzzled expression, Elder Xia said, "What's so strange about this? This matter is related to the Yang family's cultivation method. I can only say that the person who did this must have done some research on my young master. Using the so-called dark holy water as a catalyst. What a vicious method." As he spoke, he stuffed a piece of white jade slab from the 5 idiots into Dumbledore's hands, and then continued, "The 5 idiots have already used their magical powers to survey the scene. They are really cautious and wrap themselves up very tightly. Their technique is quite clever, injecting the dark holy water into the table, and relying on the attraction of the young master's internal skills to make it seep out of the table by itself. Even an old veteran can't avoid being tricked by their deliberate actions." As he was talking, a video was played on the white marble slab. "But I must remind you that it is easy to tell from the size and shape of the person who did it in this video that the one who did it this time is an adult wizard." Old Xia suddenly raised his voice and said sternly. "This is indeed a problem, but it requires further investigation," said Snape. "How do you want to investigate? How long have you been investigating the black-robed wizard's hidden hand in your school? What progress have you made?" Caillou asked. "Dumbledore, I remember that I made it very clear in the last Howler letter. If my grandson is harmed in Hogwarts again, I don't mind mobilizing the power of the entire Fry family to seek an explanation from you. Okay, everyone. Now is not the time to argue. The most important thing to do now is to cure this child. If you are still shouting in the ward and disturbing the patient's rest, I will kick you all out." The speaker turned out to be Madame Pomfrey, the school doctor, who still maintained her strong style. After a pause, Madame Pomfrey asked worriedly, "Teacher, what should we do now? This child's condition is extremely dangerous. The functions of his internal organs have been almost destroyed. Oh, it's really difficult to deal with. Fortunately, these little guys called Old Xia. Without Old Xia's pill, my grandson might not have waited for us to come. I also used a large amount of unicorn tears to counter that power, but it was just a drop in the bucket." Rosalind sighed. "Maybe we can try this." It was Dumbledore who spoke. He then took out a small bottle and said, "Phoenix tears may help this little guy." Dumbledore. Snape seemed to want to say something, but finally held back. Rosalind fed it into Yang Tian's mouth without any hesitation. It is true that the phoenix tears were not to be underestimated. As soon as they entered Yang Tian's mouth, they turned into a pure energy that traveled throughout his body. At the same time, Xiaolao's elixir and the unicorn's tears were also restraining the powerful black energy. The injuries to Yang Tian's internal organs were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yang Wen, who had been observing his son's physical condition, immediately showed a hopeful look. Unfortunately, things went against their wishes. The dark element represented by the black dog seemed to be provoked and went crazy. It frantically mobilized its strength to launch a counterattack. The great recovery momentum only lasted for a few minutes before it fell into a stalemate again. Elder Xia's worried voice sounded again, "This won't work. Judging from the current consumption, the young master can only hold on for 3 days at most." He immediately turned to look at Dumbledore. "Do you still have the phoenix tears?" Dumbledore said helplessly, "I'm sorry, Fox is already very old, and this tear has almost exhausted his energy. If that's the case, we should notify the head of the family as soon as possible. Currently, the only one who can treat the young master is the old man." Caillou said softly. "Can the old man really be saved?" Sophie asked excitedly, as if she had grasped a life-saving straw. Yang Tian's friends also showed excited expressions when they heard this. "You should be 60 to 70% sure, right?" Elder Xia said hesitantly, "But, we may not treat you here. Some of the family's background should be of great help to the young master's injury." After saying that, Elder Xia no longer hesitated and hurried out of the ward. After hearing Mr. Xia's uncertain 60–70% certainty, Sophie and Yang Wen sat down beside their son, silently shedding tears. All the friends were also at a loss, stunned on the spot. In fact, no one knew that Yang Tian was even more panicked and desperate at this moment. The reason was simple: his brain had a problem. After regaining consciousness, Yang Tian wanted to call the brain as usual to review the events. But after calling in his mind for a long time, the brain did not give any response. When he looked inside his mind, he felt even worse. The usually bright screen was like a dead machine, stuck in the starting state. No matter how his consciousness called out, the expected cold mechanical sound never appeared. This time Yang Tian really didn't know what to do. His originally perfect analysis plan was aborted. What on earth caused such a terrible consequence? What was the ding sound he heard before he passed out? Could it be that this strange black energy destroyed his brain? Yang Tian was thinking and trying hard, but suddenly he felt a pain and dizziness. The next moment, his consciousness fell into endless darkness again. Chapter 154. 2 days later, the peaceful Hogwarts was in complete turmoil. The reason was nothing else but a sudden visit from an elite army. Yes, an army, a wizard army. But a blue phoenix led the way, followed by several peacocks, then a small formation of cranes, and finally a steel torrent formed by huge flying eagles. There were at least 100 people. If these were still within the scope of the school's teachers' and students' cognition, then the giant carriage pulled by 3 white tigers with wings was truly terrifying. This carriage alone gave people a feeling of covering the sun with clouds. It was truly shocking. Seeing such a team, it would be strange if the little wizards were not shocked. Unlike the students' shocked reaction, the teachers in the school were in a heavy mood. They certainly knew who this team belonged to and the purpose of their trip. As early as yesterday afternoon, they received a notice that the head of the Yang family would visit Hogwarts tomorrow to bring his grandson back for treatment. But looking at the situation today, how can they come here to pick someone up? Are they here to demonstrate, or to question someone? When they thought of this, all the school staff, including Dumbledore and the 4 deans, looked grim. While my thoughts were racing, the whole team had already landed outside the school gate. All the people quickly got off their mounts and gathered into a neat queue in an instant. But unlike the cloth clothes and long gowns last time, everyone this time was wearing armor. But at this moment, a loud boom was heard, and the giant carriage finally landed on the ground. With a click, the car door opened, and an old man in black armor came into view. He was a resolute old man with a face as sharp as a knife and an axe, and he exuded a majestic aura. Ignoring everyone's gaze, the old man walked forward slowly, and with every step he took, his aura became stronger. There was no immortal spirit, but only domineering and unparalleled. The pace was still slow but actually fast. In an instant, they had arrived in front of Yang Wen and his wife who were waiting with their child. The Fulai family did not show up at the scene. This was something the 2 families had agreed on in advance to avoid the Fulai family from being in trouble if things got awkward. At this time, Yang Tian in Yang Wen's arms was still unconscious. Unlike 2 days ago, the little guy's body had become extremely thin, and even his face had obvious sunken areas, as if he had been malnourished for a long time. When the old man saw this scene, his eyes suddenly widened, and a murderous intent emanated from his body uncontrollably, causing the onlookers to feel a sense of concentration. The old man grabbed his grandson into his arms, took out a golden pill and stuffed it into his mouth. I don't know what kind of elixir this is. Soon after taking it, my withered skin became a little rosy, and my emaciated body seemed to have recovered a lot as if it were inflated. After briefly checking on his grandson's condition, the old man became interested in other things. He first looked at Yang Wen, then said with disgust, "You, go back to the car and kneel down. Don't get up without my order." Yang Wen, who was usually quite domineering, had no dignity at all at this moment. He just gave Sophie a reassuring look and then walked towards the frame timidly. Sophie was a little uneasy when she saw all this. Although she was quirky and had many tricks, she still had to judge people by their abilities. This old man was too powerful. What should she do now? Should she save her husband and run away? At this moment, her brain was working frantically, thinking about the other party's attitude and various ways to deal with it. But why did her brain suddenly stop working and became like a paste? Before she could think too much, the old man spoke directly, "Are you Sophie Foley? The mother of my wonderful grandson?" "Yes, old man," Sophie stammered. The old man frowned upon hearing this and said in dissatisfaction, "Hey? You're calling the old man? Well, Dad." Sophie summed up her experience and lessons and quickly changed the topic. The old man was satisfied, and then ordered, "Kiu, take Sophie to rest in the car. The child's injuries need to be treated in my Yang family's forbidden area, so let her go with you. After we finish dealing with things here, we will leave." After that, he ignored everything else and walked towards Dumbledore holding Yang Tian. When the 2 old men stood opposite each other, a stream of 5 elements swirled between them. They both seemed to sense that the other was not easy to mess with. But the old man still said, "You are the headmaster of Hogwarts, right? When my grandson and I corresponded and chatted, he praised your school highly. But what happened one after another is really embarrassing. In our country of China, our own disciples were assassinated one after another in their own sect's headquarters. No, it was surrounded and killed. And we can't find the murderer. This is no different from the mountain gate being picked by someone. It will be laughed at by colleagues. If this happened to my Yang family, I would hit my head against the wall and die. I can't afford to lose face. Hearing this, the professors around changed their expressions, especially Snape, whose eyes became even gloomier. Dumbledore said apologetically, Hogwarts is an open school, which is very different from the mountain gates in your country. Of course, it is indeed our fault that we failed to protect the students in the school. We will do our best to find out the truth. The old man remained unmoved and continued, everyone can say nice things, but not everyone can do nice things. Wait until you catch the person before you show off your tricks in front of me. Before that, don't let me think I overestimate you. Also, I must be given an explanation for the dark holy water that my in-laws mentioned. Don't doubt my words. There is no reason to be wrong about 1 or 2 things, but not about 3 or 4. For the safety of my grandson of the Yang family, sometimes I can be shameless. After a pause, he said loudly, I want to warn those who have bad intentions. My Tienner is not a rootless duckweed that can be manipulated by others. Tienner is fine this time, so we can talk it out. If anything happens to him, I will not stop with the strength of my entire family. After saying that, he turned around and strode away, not giving anyone a chance to speak. When Yang Tian woke up again, he found himself lying in a hot spring in a closed cave. The gurgling water seemed to have infinite power, moisturizing his injured body. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious, and he didn't care about it at all. His only thought was to call the intelligent computer as he did after he woke up briefly before. Unfortunately, there was still no response. Yang Tian was already somewhat desperate. Was this really his fate? But at this moment, the old man's surprised voice came from behind, Tienner, are you awake? Hearing this call, Yang Tian instantly woke up and called out weakly, Grandpa. Seeing the sorrow in his grandson's eyes and his weak physical condition, the old man felt uncomfortable again, but he still laughed and said, Don't worry, little one, I'll take care of you. Although our Yang family doesn't have many high-quality life-saving pills, they are enough to keep you alive for half a year. Besides, our Yang family is still quite respectable in China. In a few days, I will buy top-quality healing pills from all the major sects. No matter what, I will keep you alive until you analyze the dark elements. Then your problems will be solved. Hearing the old man's words, Yang Tian felt his nose sour for some reason. But thinking about his current situation, he felt confused. Without the analysis of the intelligent brain, his Grindylow had to start from scratch, plus the night thestrals. He had never even drawn any magical creature independently. Of course, as the intelligent brain analyzed more and more lifelines, his understanding of lifelines became much deeper. But these were just a feeling, a guess, they had never been truly put into practice, and he himself didn't know how long it would take. However, Yang Tian, who has lived 2 lives, is not the kind of person who gives up easily. After complaining for a while, the little guy became ruthless again. When a person dies, the bird flies to the sky, and he will live forever. Isn't it just a lifeline? I don't believe it. When my body recovers a little, I will start. With this thought in mind, Yang Tian closed his eyes again, slowly recovered in the hot spring, and soon fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how long I slept, but Yang Tian was awakened by a ding sound in his mind. Chapter 155. Yang Tian could hardly believe his ears. He forced himself to ask, Intelligent brain, is that you? What happened? Why did you disappear for 3 days? The cold mechanical voice sounded again, the system upgrade is complete and can continue to be used. Do you want to continue analyzing Grindylow? System upgrade? You disappeared for 3 days just because of the system upgrade? But why would the system upgrade? Yang Tian almost shouted this out loud. The cold mechanical voice explained in detail, yes, after completing the data collection of the Hogwarts library, the Western magical world was improved and modeled, so the system was upgraded. The system has previously issued a reminder that the upgrade will take 3 days. Oh my god, when did you remind me? Yang Tian paused in the middle of his words. Could it be the ding sound before he fainted? Good man, this is an intelligent computer? This is really not intelligent at all. I'm about to die, and you're still upgrading over there? Although he couldn't help complaining in his heart, Yang Tian's mood turned from gloomy to bright. He quickly continued to ask, what new functions does the intelligent brain have after the upgrade? The mechanical voice immediately replied, first, after the upgrade, the intelligent brain becomes dual-threaded, and can perform two tasks at the same time. Second, the computing speed of each independent thread of the intelligent brain is doubled. Third, it can model and analyze things under the framework of Western magic and provide the best solution. Hearing these words, Yang Tian's heart was burning. Modeling aside, doesn't that mean that he can analyze two magical creatures at the same time? If we imagine further, if there is a magic riot, doesn't that mean? The picture is so beautiful that Yang Tian doesn't dare to think about it anymore. Grandpa! Grandpa! Yang Tian suddenly shouted excitedly. Tianer, what's wrong? The old man was startled when he suddenly heard his grandson calling him and asked hurriedly. Grandpa, I heard from Grandpa Xia that after the 5 elements gathered, you prepared an ice silkworm for me. Yang Tian said hopefully. Before thinking about those things now, let's draw the thestral that old Xia mentioned first. The old man said casually. What about the ice silkworm? Just put it here with me first. If that little guy accidentally comes into contact with me, I will draw it in an instant. Yang Tian said immediately. You kid, are you afraid that Grandpa will default on his debt? Here, give it to you, here it is for you. As he said this, he took out a luxurious crystal box from his treasure bag with a helpless look, and there was an ice silkworm crawling slowly inside. Yang Tian immediately took it and looked at it carefully. But he continued to ask, Grandpa, can you find another magical animal with another attribute? The old man was not in a hurry to answer this question. Instead, he said in a slightly serious tone, Tianer, I know you are a rare genius and your cultivation path is quite smooth. It is inevitable that you are a little arrogant. But you can't be too ambitious. The 5 elements haven't gathered yet, and you have the dark element, the ice element, and now you want to target other elements. You will be confused. Grandpa, what are you talking about? Yang Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly. Well, I'll tell you the truth. Every time I make a breakthrough, my mind will be unusually clear, and my understanding of magical animals of other attributes will increase exponentially. I'm just going to give it a try. If it works, that's the best. If it doesn't, I won't force it. But it won't go wrong to prepare in advance, right? There is such a thing. The old man's eyes lit up when he heard it. He thought about it and realized that it was just like that. It was just preparation in advance. What was wrong with that? As soon as he thought of this, he immediately said, Your Grandpa Xia has a little blue phoenix that is about to grow up. This blue phoenix is also called a blue bird. It is the darling of the wind. It was born in the wind and grew up in the wind. Its body is as blue as the morning sky. Its cry is the most beautiful sound in the world. The blue phoenix is curling, and the sound of the blue sea and sky is unique. That is the only way to depict the element of wind. Old Xia is still stationed in the UK. I'd like to take this opportunity to go to his place and ask for some advice. After saying this, he turned around and was about to leave. That won't do. Grandpa Xia is so good to me, how can I? Yang Tian hurriedly stopped him. Okay, kid, I'm just saying this. Old Xia is happy for it. Just be nice to your Grandpa Xia from now on. We've been brothers for life, why are there so many rules? After saying this, he left in a hurry. 2 hours later, the old man returned with little Qingluan, looking very excited. Haha, how is it? It's easy to get. My dear grandson, if you have any other requests, please let us know. Yang Tian thought about the scene when the magic power was rioting, and an idea suddenly occurred to him. Grandpa, is there a place with more active energy around? I want to practice there. The old man laughed proudly again after hearing this. That's called a place with abundant spiritual energy. You kid, when this matter is over, hurry up and go to our Yang family library to study. Besides, our Yang family is at least somewhat famous, how could we be short of spiritual energy? I will take you to the place where the family's land veins converge, and let you see our family's foundation. Yang Tian was suddenly very excited and struggled to get up, but his body was seriously injured and he couldn't move at all after trying for a long time. The old man couldn't bear it and said, how about keeping him for a few more days? No need, Grandpa. I feel like the opportunity for a breakthrough is coming. Yang Tian replied immediately. How could he still be in the mood to wait? The old man said no more, picked up Yang Tian, put another elixir into his mouth, and then walked leisurely into the depths of the cave. Half an hour later, Yang Tian sat on a piece of soft jade, and the spiritual energy around him was extremely strong. On the table in front of him were the eye-dotting pen, the spiritual cinnabar, and the white jade book. Beside him, Grindylow, the night star, the unicorn, the ice silkworm, and the little blue Luan were on both sides. The old man sat cross-legged a little further away, protecting him. Wow, everything is ready, only the east wind is missing. Yang Tian finally stopped hesitating, closed his eyes, and gave an order to the intelligent computer in his mind. Thread 1 continues to analyze Grindylow, Thread 2 begins to analyze the Thestrals. I don't know if it was because the upgraded intelligent brain was too powerful, or if Grindylow had almost finished analyzing it. Just a few breaths after the command was issued, a cold mechanical voice sounded, Grindylow's analysis is complete. Do you want to receive the feedback of the deduction results? Received. Yang Tian replied immediately. The next moment, the memory of Grindylow's fate deduction poured out from the intelligent computer screen and merged with the original memory. Without any hesitation, Yang Tian used the dotting pen to draw on the white jade book, and the Grindylow in his mind came to life on the paper. In an instant, a large amount of blue energy surged out of the Grindylow beside him, and then penetrated into Yang Tian's danshan. 1/10 of the magic power in the energy also dispersed as before and rushed into his mind. But this time was different from the past. When the water element expanded to the same size as the gold, wood, and earth elements, the 5 elements evolved again at the same time. The gold element evolved into a golden little tiger, the wood element evolved into a green little dragon, the earth element evolved into a brown unicorn, the water element evolved into a blue little turtle, and the fire element, which had already evolved, liquefied. The liquid firebird, like a real thing, exuded a heart-pounding heat and pressure. At the same time, 5 terrifying magical powers were automatically generated and rushed into Yang Tian's mind again in an instant. Chapter 156. The overwhelming magic power entered Yang Tian's mind, and the balance was instantly broken. The surrounding spiritual energy seemed to have found an outlet, and it rushed into Yang Tian's body crazily, and the magic power riot came as expected. Yang Tian's body relaxed even more, and the little black dog of dark element only dared to hide in the corner and tremble. Yang Tian was delighted that everything went as planned, but he knew that time was precious. He didn't have time to observe the changes in his body, so he continued to issue instructions. Thread 1, analyze the unicorn. After receiving the command, the intelligent brain began to work frantically as a large amount of spiritual energy poured in. Yang Tian just breathed a sigh of relief and was about to check the changes in his body when he suddenly heard a cold mechanical voice again. Yucky, analysis is complete. Do you want to receive feedback on the deduction results? Fuck, a kind of plant? Yang Tian was confused, but he subconsciously gave the order according to the established plan. Thread 2, analyze the ice silkworm, receive the deduction results. At this moment, Yang Tianke was in the mood to finish carving Yeqi on the white jade book. Yeqi beside him suddenly paused, and a large amount of dark element energy gushed out, and then he also plunged into Yang Tian's danshan. In an instant, another wave of magic rushed into his mind. As soon as Yang Tian put down the finishing touch pen, he asked the intelligent brain in confusion why the analysis speed of Yeqi was so fast. The answer given by the intelligent brain was also very simple: there were dark elements in his danshan. Although these dark elements did not belong to Yang Tian, it did not prevent the intelligent brain from setting prerequisites according to its characteristics and excluding most of the completely impossible combinations. This made the analysis of Yeqi so efficient. The old man was even more confused at this moment. He had thought that his grandson was extremely talented, but he never thought that he was so abnormal. He had already guessed when the water element broke through. After all, it had been almost 11 months, so he was not surprised. But he couldn't remain calm when the dark element broke through at this moment. Could it be that, as the little guy said, this dark element was destined to be with him? Or did this dark element torture him for too long, so he had feelings for it? For a moment, the old man secretly unfolded his infinite reverie. Time passed quietly, and just as the old man opened his mouth and thought about it, Yang Tian on the opposite side made another surprising move. He picked up the dotting pen again and a graceful unicorn appeared on the white jade book. The old man suspected that he was dreaming. He pinched his thigh hard, but he was determined that all this was real. Why? It hurts. After a while, the old man finally calmed down. He stared at Yang Tian and his eye-dotting pen with full concentration, as if he was expecting something, or trying to persuade himself. Until the end, his good grandson did not pick up the eye-dotting pen again. Seeing Yang Tian standing up, the old man asked with a hint of reluctance, "Don't try again? There should still be a chance, right?" "Ah." Yang Tian was stunned at first, then smiled and replied, "Grandpa, don't worry, this training went smoothly. Grindalo, Thestral and Unicorn are all completed, and the Ice Silkworm will be almost done tomorrow. The Blue Luan may be a little slower, I estimate it will take about a week. Alas, but the next step will not be so smooth. Where can I find this magical animal of the lightning element? Isn't this a waste of time?" The old man was ecstatic at first, but the more he listened, the more he felt uncomfortable. Isn't this just pretending to be smart in front of me? But how can this pretense make me so angry and feel so comfortable? But after thinking about it, he frowned and said, "Yes, when inspiration is overflowing, there is no exotic beast available. Isn't this a delay? Once the opportunity is delayed and we are stuck somewhere and unable to break through, then wouldn't it be?" As he spoke more and more anxiously, the old man hurriedly said, "Don't worry, grandson. I will ask everyone in the family to look for thunder beasts. Besides, the Shenxiao Palace is a major thunder sect, so there should be no shortage of thunder beasts. Although I am not familiar with them, I will pay a personal visit to them tomorrow, and I think they will give me some face." Hearing this, Yang Tian immediately advised, "Grandpa, it is not worth sacrificing our Yang family's reputation and relationship for such a small matter. Especially the Lingxiao Palace. You said you are not familiar with them, but you still want to go and beg them in person. If you succeed, it's fine. If you fail, it will be considered an enemy." Seeing the old man's thoughtful expression, Yang Tian continued, "Let my grandfather figure out a way to deal with this. There is a magical creature in the west called the Thunderbird, which completely meets the requirements for portrayal. Most importantly, the Thunderbird can be bought and sold. There is really no need to rely on favors for something that can be accomplished with a little money." The old man's eyes lit up when he heard this. "Okay, write a letter and discuss it with your grandparents. By the way, how is your health now? Do you still need to go to Lingchuan to recuperate for a while?" After this reminder, Yang Tian was also shocked. He clearly remembered his condition just now. He even had difficulty standing. But why was there nothing abnormal in his body at this time? He quickly turned on the inner vision, and after a moment he exclaimed, "Grandpa, all the injuries on my body are healed. It's amazing." The old man laughed and scolded, "Magic bullshit, every healing pill I fed you is of top quality, it can't bring back the dead, but it's not far off. If it weren't for the dark element, your injury would have healed hundreds of times. Now that the dark element is no longer a threat, and the residual medicinal power in your body is so strong, it would be strange if it didn't work." Hearing this, Yang Tian felt warm in his heart again. He knew too well the value of this life-saving elixir. But his grandfather had planned to let him take it for a long time. This was digging into the foundation of the Yang family. How could he not be moved? The old man was also a shrewd man. He knew what his grandson was thinking just by looking at his expression. But he glared at him and scolded him, "Don't hesitate here, kid. As long as they are from our Yang family, there is no reason not to save them, no matter who they are." Yang Tian was stunned at first when he heard this, then he shook his head and smiled bitterly. He is really a stubborn old man. Of course, the grandfather and grandson were both smart people, and they didn't take the previous scene seriously. They walked out of the forbidden area while chatting and laughing. After crossing an ancient suspension bridge, they went straight to the inner hall. As soon as he entered the inner hall, Yang Tian was stunned. Why was this so-called inner courtyard like a vegetable market, with so many people gathered there? The old man was also puzzled and asked, "Why are you all here to make a fuss instead of staying in your own yard?" Before anyone at the scene could reply, the young lady who had vowed to get yellow river carp for the old man spoke first. "Oh my dear grandpa, we didn't intend to come, but the bells in the inner ancestral hall suddenly rang loudly, and for a long time. It's like something big happened, so we have to come and take a look." After saying that, the girl suddenly saw the little boy next to the old man. She immediately became interested and said, is this my little cousin? Be good and call me sister, and I'll give you candy. Yang Tian was speechless when he heard this. Wasn't this sister too unreliable? Buying candy? Who was she looking down on? So, he turned his head away and responded to his cousin's words with a look of disdain and resolutely ignored her. The girl was stunned when she saw this and then became very angry. Go away, you're the only one who talks too much. The old man said a few words to his granddaughter casually, but his expression was much more relaxed. He then ordered, a few old brothers, direct descendants and collateral elders stay, the rest of you can go first. The old man obviously had the final say in the Yang family. In an instant, most of the people in the inner courtyard left. Chapter 157. Come, Tianer, meet your family first. The old man said with a smile, this is Lao Liao. He was also the one who saved you last time. Hello, Grandpa Liao. Thank you for saving my life. Upon hearing this, Yang Tian hurriedly thanked him. Hey, young master, please don't say that. It's really embarrassing for me. Old Liao said humbly. Old Liao, you should accept the gift from this child. What is there to hide? The old man immediately became unhappy. Upon hearing this, Mr. Liao didn't know what to say and just accepted the greeting. This is Lao Diao. He was the one who caught the ice silkworm for you. The old man continued. Upon hearing this, Yang Tian hurriedly bowed again, thank you, Grandpa Diao, for running around for me. Lao Diao originally wanted to be humble, but after seeing the old man's expression, he gave in. This is your second uncle Yang Zhou, who is in charge of the talisman making room, your second aunt Zhang Ying, who is in charge of purchasing. If you need talismans or cultivation resources in the future, you can always go to them. This is your third uncle Yang Yang, who is currently in charge of the intelligence department and helps people with feng shui inspections. Your third aunt Wang Ruyu is in charge of the alchemy hall. You will definitely be able to use them in the future. Your eldest brother Yang Yu is currently working in a special department and is away from home all year round. The only person of your generation in the family is this girl named Yang Shuet, who is mischievous and unruly all the time. If you want to eat, drink and have fun, you can definitely go with her. The others are unreliable. And these elders from the collateral clan. The old man introduced Yang Tian one by one, and Yang Tian quickly greeted them one by one. But when Yang Shue's cousin heard the old man's introduction, she immediately refused to accept it. Grandpa, how can you be so mean to your own granddaughter? I am a cultivation genius after all. I am only 18 years old and I have already practiced the three elements of water, fire, and earth. How can you call this unreliable? Grandpa, you are too biased. As she spoke, she glanced at Yang Tian angrily. Yang Tian was completely confused. She had only carved 3 systems at the age of 18, and that was it. She was also a genius in cultivation? For a moment, he could only look at this cousin stupidly with a surprised expression on his face. How could Yang Shui know the rich inner drama of her cousin? She thought that her cousin had been impressed by her extraordinary talent, and she was immediately delighted. She patted Yang Tian on the shoulder and said, learn from me well. If you can catch up with half of me in the future, you will benefit a lot. Go away, don't embarrass yourself in front of your brother. You might be embarrassed later. The old man was completely speechless. Old Liao was always worried about Yang Tian's injury, so he didn't care about the quarrel between the grandfather and grandson. He couldn't wait to ask, how is it, has Xiaoshan's internal problems been solved? Has the dark element been carved out? Dark element? Yang Zhou, the second uncle next to him, was so shocked that he shouted out immediately. Yang Yang also said weakly, then wouldn't it be the qualification to master all 6 paths? The old man curled his lips smugly upon hearing this and said, don't worry, Lao Liao, Tianer has completed the carving of the dark element, and all the injuries on his body have been healed. Besides, who said that he has mastered all 6 paths? My grandson has already mastered all 7 orifices, and after a week, he will master all 9 stars. In at most another year, my grandson will surely have the qualifications to master all 10 methods. Grandpa, how much fake wine did you drink to say such nonsense? And he has all 10 methods? Have you ever seen a seed with all 10 methods within 1,000 years, let alone 500 years? Yang Shui screamed. Humph, you are the one who drank the fake wine. My wine has always been given by your parents as a gift. If you say it is fake wine, I will beat them with a stick. The old man immediately said dissatisfiedly, besides, just because there was no wine in the past 1,000 years, it doesn't mean that there can't be any now. What's wrong with my grandson having all 10 methods? Do you dislike it? Usually when the grandfather and grandson were joking around, there would always be people cheering them on. But today, the scene was strangely quiet. Everyone looked at Yang Tian as if he were a monster. Old Liao asked in disbelief, Xiao Tian, is what your grandfather said true? Yang Tian was also helpless, but still nodded and said, that's true. How can this be? Oh my god, am I dreaming now? The noise around them could no longer be suppressed, and even Yang Shui gave up her talk and stood there in a daze. Facing such a scene, Yang Tian was not happy, but he could understand the shock of the crowd. So, he could only look at the old man for help. The old man immediately understood and said, Tianer, you have to confirm the matter of the thunder beast with your grandpa and grandma as soon as possible. Then he turned around and ordered, Aq, take Tianer to the purple bamboo forest first. Butler Chu Bo hurried forward and respectfully accepted the order, and left with Yang Tian. Seeing Yang Tian walking away, the old man said very solemnly, what I just said is the top secret of my Yang family. Anyone who hears about this today must swear by their inner demon that they will not reveal a single word. Everyone nodded in agreement when they heard this, and immediately began to swear an oath. Everyone knew how much turmoil this news would cause in the current Chinese cultivation world. Seeing that everyone knew the importance of the matter, the old man continued with satisfaction, I tell you all this to let everyone know how important Tianer is to our Yang family. Those who know Tianer's past should know that although this child is deep-minded, he values friendship and loyalty, which is quite similar to my past style. I hope that everyone will treat him with sincerity and not bring the outside world's ways of the world back home. Everyone hurriedly agreed. The old man looked at his granddaughter and said, and you, little troublemaker. Although Tianer is mature, he is still a child at heart. You should take your brother to play around in our Yang family more often, so that he can get to know our Yang family better, right? Yang Shui laughed and said, don't worry, Grandpa. Didn't you say that I'm not reliable for cultivation? If you want to eat, drink and have fun, you can always find me. When everyone heard this, they all burst into laughter. The old man also laughed happily, and then said solemnly, from today on, Tianer's guard level will be upgraded by 1 level. I don't want him to encounter any accidents before he completes his training. Also, send visiting cards to all sects and families. 5 days later, my Yang family will hold a ceremony to worship the ancestors, so that Tianer can recognize his ancestors and return to his roots. We look forward to everyone coming to watch the ceremony. Yes. Everyone responded loudly. But Yang Tian, under the guidance of housekeeper Chu Bo, passed through many corridors and finally came to a purple bamboo forest. Purple bamboos were scattered all over the mountain, and even the rocks next to them were purple-red. The bamboo and rocks complemented each other. There is only one winding path leading to the secluded place. Beside the path stands a stone tablet with 3 characters inscribed on it, Purple Bamboo Forest. The two climbed the stairs, surrounded by the sound of birdsong and clear streams. After passing a low bamboo forest, the front suddenly opened up. The simple courtyard wall built of purple bamboo and the several exquisitely carved bamboo buildings inside the courtyard wall blended into the surrounding environment, like a fairyland. Young master, this is the purple bamboo forest. There are female relatives in the courtyard, and I am not in a position to disturb them. I will just send you here. Uncle Chu said respectfully. Grandpa Chu, please don't be polite. You are the housekeeper of our Yang mansion and the person Grandpa trusts the most. From now on, you can just call me Xiao Tian. Please don't be so distant. Yang Tian said hurriedly. Oh, look at what you said. I dare not agree to this no matter what. If I agree, I will be overstepping my authority. From now on, you can just call me Uncle Chu like everyone else. I still want to stay with you for 2 more years. Uncle Chu said in fear and trepidation. Yang Tian was stunned at first, then laughed and said, okay, I understand, Uncle Chu. Chu Bo then turned his worry into joy and said goodbye and left. Chapter 158. After watching Chu Bo leave, Yang Tian turned around and entered the courtyard. Before he had time to look around, he saw his mother Sophie sitting alone on a bamboo chair in a daze. Mom, why are you still in a daze? Are you thinking about how to trick your precious son again? Seeing Yang Tian's rosy face and calmness, Sophie rushed to him and checked him carefully. Then she said in surprise, "Xiao Tian, are you fully recovered?" "Don't worry, Mom. I've fully recovered, and my strength has greatly improved." Yang Tian felt warm in his heart, but still said proudly, "Tisk, keep bragging. You almost killed yourself practicing that damn Chinese martial arts. I don't know if you are too useless or if this martial arts is too weird." Sophie muttered, then raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "By the way, what did you say just now? Mom loves you so much, how could she cheat you? Slap your conscience, weigh the pros and cons and tell me again, has Mom ever cheated you?" Hearing this, Yang Tian was shocked. He said righteously, "No, how could my dearest mother cheat me? Back then, it was definitely Aunt Sophia who stole the noodles. It was definitely Aunt Sophia who threatened me with biting cabbage to make me obedient. It was definitely not my mother who let a 3-year-old child be baptized by the devil's snare." Yang Tian recounted his experiences incessantly. "Boy, have I not dealt with you for too long? Are you a little uncomfortable with it?" Sophie felt something was not right the more she listened, and her left hand reached for her wand. "Mom, I didn't just survive a disaster. I was just so excited that I was joking with you. Why are you still so anxious? This is not like you at all." While speaking, Yang Tian had already hugged Sophie's arms tightly. "That's better." Seeing that her son was fine, Sophie was in a good mood. She quickly changed the subject and said, "But you should not practice your kung fu if you can. I was really scared this time. And your Aunt Sophia almost put aside the nightmare and came to see you. Mom, please don't believe everything you hear, okay? This time, it was thanks to this technique, otherwise I might not even have a chance to be rescued." As he said that, he told Sophie what happened in the restricted area. Because of Padma's explanation, Yang Tian didn't take the restricted area to heart, so he just mentioned it briefly in the letter to his parents. After hearing the whole thing, Sophie was surprised and asked, "Are you talking about that grey book? I've seen it in the restricted area. Although that book is very weird, it's not that weird, right? Unless some of your characteristics meet the requirements to activate it." Yang Tian was also stunned when he heard this and said, "Yes, this book should have been in the restricted books area for a long time. Why didn't it reveal its true identity to others? According to this idea, Tianer, you must be vigilant when reading books in the restricted area. Who knows? One of them might become the murderer that kills you." Sophie said worriedly. "I understand, Mom." Yang Tian, who couldn't figure it out, could only nod and said yes, then changed the subject, "By the way, Mom, where is my dad? He's kneeling at the gate of Elder Li and Elder Xiao's courtyard, saying that he's atonement for his past mistakes." Sophie pouted and replied, "What's going on?" Yang Tian said in astonishment, "What happened back then? I asked you, but you didn't tell me. Even if my father made a mistake, he has been through life and death all these years, bent on revenge, now he has completely eradicated the institute. Any grudges should be settled, right? Your father didn't tell me the specific situation. I only know that because of his mistake, some elites of the Yang family died. He has always felt guilty about it." Sophie said hesitantly. "Then I'll go take a look." Yang Tian frowned and was about to get up. "Don't go." Sophie stopped her son and said, "Before your father left, he told us not to interfere. He said this was a debt he owed." Yang Tian had no choice but to sit down after hearing this, but he suddenly felt depressed. In his short second life, his parents' love was undoubtedly precious to him, and he was willing to protect it with his own life. But now, oh! I feel so depressed. But Yang Tian's face had already drooped, and he asked with a little dissatisfaction, "No one comes to accompany you? Just let you stay here by yourself." Sophie rolled her eyes and said, "You change your temper faster than turning the pages of a book. Don't try to find someone to vent your anger on. Your second aunt and third aunt have been with me these days. They just said there was a little trouble, that the bell was ringing or something, and they wanted me to go check it out. I was upset, so I didn't go." Yang Tian felt bored when he heard that, and could only say reluctantly, "Mom, you take a rest first, I want to write a letter to my friends to let them know I'm safe." After that, he ran away in a flash. "What? It's not fun at all. How come you haven't inherited much of my talent in all these years? I said I wouldn't go, your dad said I wouldn't go, so you really won't go? You're really stupid." Besides, if you can't do it openly, you won't do it secretly. Sophie kept muttering in a low voice, expressing her dissatisfaction. It's still the little girl named Yang Shui who is fun, she's clever and quirky. How about letting her give some advice to your son? But how could Yang Tian know that his mother had so many inner thoughts at this time? As soon as he entered the room, he began to write furiously, including Neville, Hermione, Penelope, even Pansy and Daphne. After a little thought, Yang Tian wrote to Hagrid again, asking for all the relevant information about the Thunderbird. Finally, he wrote to his grandfather, Mr. Barnett, solemnly, saying that he needed a Thunderbird without any restrictions, and the sooner the better. He also repeatedly reminded him that this matter was related to his cultivation progress, and he must be cautious. After sealing all the letters, Yang Tianke summoned Meng Mengjiao to send them away. After finishing everything, he looked at the time and found that half a day had passed. Stretching, Yang Tian walked out of the house leisurely, but saw that the courtyard was already bustling with activity. Second aunt and third aunt were playing mahjong with Sophie. There was a group of women watching the game, instructing the mother who was still unfamiliar with the game. Ha ha ha, this is called Duijuihu, right? I won. Sophie suddenly stepped on the chair and shouted arrogantly. Yang Tian put his hand on his forehead when he saw this. My goodness, where is the upset you said you would feel? Just like this? At this moment, Yang Shui came running over and asked curiously, Cousin, are you also interested in mahjong? No, I'm just interested in my mother's aristocratic etiquette. Yang Tian answered casually. What nonsense are you talking about, you brat? Sophie, realizing she had lost her composure, immediately quit. She quickly took her foot off, but rolled up her sleeves and was about to beat the guy up. Well, aunt, just play your own game. Why bother you to do such a small thing yourself? Let me teach this kid a lesson for you. As she said this, she dragged Yang Tian out of the yard. Chapter 159. As soon as the two of them walked out of the hospital, Yang Shui smiled happily and said, Come on, little brother, call me sister and let me hear it. If you call me sweetly, I will take you out to play. Hearing this, Yang Tian was speechless again. It was still a familiar recipe, a familiar taste. This cousin really didn't seem to be very reliable. With this thought in mind, he could not help but slightly move away from her, creating a distance of one body length. Oh, okay, I won't make trouble with you anymore. Your temper is not fun at all, even worse than that of my aunt. Yang Shui pouted and said helplessly. Yang Tian's forehead was full of black lines, but he could only ask helplessly, So, my dear cousin, where are you going to take me to play? Yang Shui smiled with a smile of success, That's good enough. Come on, today I will take you to appreciate the beautiful scenery of my Yang family. As he spoke, he stepped on the clouds and soared into the sky. Yang Tian could only follow him quickly. In the next half-day, Yang Tian finally experienced what great scenery is. The Crane Lake where many giant cranes live, the Yaishan Mountain with all kinds of rare medicinal gardens, the Danfan Mountain where dozens of alchemists gather and the fragrance of elixirs is overflowing all year round. Too many scenes shocked Yang Tian. He finally knew that the Yang family was actually divided into two courtyards, the inner and outer courtyards. Unlike the relatively exquisite inner courtyard, the outer courtyard was truly vast and populous. Of course, although there were many people, they were all ordinary people. Only when the offspring born could cultivate successfully, their related relatives would have the opportunity to be incorporated into the inner courtyard. Perhaps, it was precisely because of the reproduction of these ordinary people that the Yang family could continuously provide new blood and last for a long time. All of this seemed to exist in a space similar to a small world. Such a heaven-defying scene was a realm that the traceless extension spell could not possibly reach. Before they knew it, the two of them had been playing for an entire afternoon. Yang Tian was in a much better mood at this time, and he had thought a lot more clearly. He decided to have a frank talk with the old man to avoid a mess in the end. In the old man's study, Yang Tian said very solemnly, Grandpa, can my father's problem be solved? Or can it be solved by kneeling like this? Hey, kneeling is a must. This is what your father owed you. Tianer, you have to understand that he is my son, the legitimate son of the Yang family, and the former young master. If there is no room for maneuver, how can I expel him from the Yang family tree? Yang Tian was shocked when he heard this. The old man's words were sincere and reasonable. It seemed that there was a hidden story behind what happened back then. He couldn't help but ask anxiously, "Grandpa, what happened to my dad back then? Can you tell me?" He never said anything about this. You should wait until your father has resolved this matter and let him tell you in person. Perhaps only in this way can he truly let it go. The old man's words were surprisingly bleak. As the saying goes, a son should pay for his father's debts. I will kneel with my father. Is that okay? Yang Tian asked unwillingly. Child, I completely understand your feelings. But he has to bear this hurdle alone. I believe that as long as you go, the problem will be solved immediately. Who would let the hope of the Yang family, the genius of the ages, kneel outside the door? The old man said earnestly, but is that really a good thing for Winner? You are using your power to suppress others. Back then, Lao Li and Lao Xiao loved your father the most. Yang Tian was stunned for a while after hearing this. Finally, he could only sigh and turn away. Coming out of the old man's room listlessly, Yang Tian was bored and was about to return to the purple bamboo forest, but his cousin Yang Shui jumped out again. Tisk, I told you a long time ago that you should do whatever you want to do first and talk about it after you're done. But you didn't want to, and even went to argue with the old man. How about it? You got argued with by the old man instead? Let me tell you, the old man is still the wisest. Go away, I'm still fat and greasy. You know I'm in a bad mood, but you still talk nonsense. Yang Tian said dissatisfiedly. Oh, what's there to be sad about? Although Grandpa Li and Grandpa Xiao have bad tempers, they are definitely not ignorant of the seriousness of the situation. Don't worry, come on, I'll take you to continue playing. After saying that, Yang Shui ignored her cousin's resistance and ran away. Sister, where is this? As the two were walking, Yang Tian was suddenly attracted by an antique 4-story attic in the distance and couldn't help asking. Ah? There? That's the library. It's the most boring place in the entire Yang family. Yang Shui explained with a pout. Yang Tian became interested after hearing this and quickly asked, Book collection pavilion? Shall we go there and take a look? Ah? What's fun there? Yang Shui retorted dissatisfiedly, but after looking at Yang Tian's expression, she could only compromise helplessly. Okay, today I will be merciful and take you for a stroll. But you have to be mentally prepared, don't cry because of your stupid choice. Yang Tian just smiled slightly and walked forward quickly. Although he was mentally prepared, and although Yang Tian only hurriedly browsed through the various floors of the library, he was still shocked by its vastness. The entire 4 floors of the attic were filled with various books in a densely packed and staggered manner. Regardless of what was written in the book, he was amazed by the materials used in the book: bamboo slips, silk, bark, bronze, oracle bones, jade, paper. Let's take a look at the content it involves: talismans, alchemy, refining, formations, divination, feng shui, exercises. Although the books are not classified, they are all-encompassing and contain everything. He had thought that the Yang family had a deep heritage, but he had never thought that its collection was so large. This was simply a huge treasure trove. Maybe after browsing all the books in this library, his brain would be upgraded again? When he thought of this, Yang Tian's heart suddenly became hot. How could he still have the intention to wander around at this moment? Yang Shui, who had been yawning along the way, was surprised to find that her brother, who had been sullen just now, was now like a treasure-hunting mouse who had found treasure. He jumped up excitedly, shouting, Sister, hurry up, help me find some people, find more people, and ask them to come and turn the pages for me. The more people, the better. What? Yang Shui was obviously shocked by the scene, and looked at her cousin with a dazed face. What? Just flipping through the books. She picked up a thread-bound book and started flipping through it. Oh, sister, you better hurry up. Hurry. Go every second. Yang Shui said no more, put her hand on her forehead and ran to call for help. Isn't this a very subversive image of her cousin? 3 or 5 minutes later, more than 20 young people hurried to the library. Under Yang Tian's command, they quickly got into the state, some moved books, some turned books, some sorted them. They were busy. Yang Tian, who was enjoying it, was extremely happy at this time. With the help of everyone, his speed of reading books was more than 10 times faster. For a while, he was completely immersed in the sea of books and couldn't extricate himself for a long time. The scene in the library quickly attracted the attention of family members and elders. There was no way, the young master's actions were too shocking. Are you sure he is reading a book and not showing off? If the person who was misbehaving in front of him was not the old man's favorite, the elders who couldn't stand it would have gone up to give him a beating. But what about now? When the matter was reported, the old man actually said directly, Yang Tian can do whatever he wants, and the family members just need to fully cooperate. As if it was not enough, the old man finally issued an order to clear the place. Before the ancestral worship ceremony, the library was sealed off, and no one except Yang Tian and his helpers was allowed to approach. Good guy. Yang Tian's favor is obvious. Since there is no excitement to watch, what else is there to say? Everyone goes back to their own homes and finds their own mothers. Of course, not everyone listens to the old man, at least Yang Shui, the cousin, and Sophie, the biological mother, are not among them. Therefore, the following scene often occurs in the library. Yang Shui, little brother, have you really memorized all of them? Then let me test you. Sophie, Tianer, why don't you go somewhere else with me? You are so showy that I am too embarrassed to see anyone. Yang Tian, Mom, sister, please. Can you two hold hands and walk forward? When I finish reading the books here, I will play with you. Chapter 160. Yang Tian worked day and night in the library, and his friends in Hogwarts were overjoyed after receiving his letter of safety. After class, everyone gathered in an organized manner at the new secret base, the room of requirement. Yang Tian asked Pansy and Daphne to tell his friends about this base. Of course, the scene chosen was no longer a dim cell, but a bright classroom. It seems that my junior is fine, and from what he said in the letter, his strength will make a leap after he comes back. While I am happy for him, I am also worried about our situation. As a companion, I don't want to fall too far behind. Penelope said solemnly. Of course, we must speed up our study. Hermione clenched her fists. Neville didn't agree with what he said, but stammered, I'm dumber than everyone else. I barely caught up with the course with everyone's help. It's already difficult for me to improve further. Seeing the dangerous looks from Hermione and Penelope, Neville quickly avoided their gazes and continued, Do you think this will work? I do have a little talent in herbology. Instead of asking me to improve in all subjects, why not let me work harder on herbology? Maybe I can help Yang Tian in this regard. The Paddle sisters nodded in surprise and said, This is a very good suggestion. Neville, you are awesome. Instead of not being able to catch up with Yang Tian in every subject, why don't you specialize in one subject? Yang Tian once told us that our strength lies in our souls. Hannah also shouted excitedly, I have been thinking about this for a long time. I have asked my family to help me purchase alchemy books and materials. Although this seems incredible, I still have to say that I seem to have made some progress in alchemy. The props I promised you are about to be successful. Then everyone will have an extra layer of protection when they go in and out. Pansy and Daphne raised their heads proudly. It must be said that without Yang Tian, no one could suppress them. But what they said was, we can help Yang Tian with bloodline research. You guys. Hermione looked very disappointed. Penelope nodded happily and said, Very good, everyone has their own expertise, which is a good thing. Hermione, the same goes for you. Do you want to surpass Yang Tian in 1 or 2 courses, or catch up with him in every course? This sentence completely drained the girl's energy. Since she met Yang Tian, she has been working hard, but the more she tries to catch up, the bigger the gap between them is getting. She is not a fool, isn't it obvious what choice to make? At this time, Zhang Qiu said with a guilty conscience, What is my specialty? Quidditch. Penelope smiled and said, Qiu, you are also very good at transfiguration. Besides, why Quidditch instead of flying? Maybe you have an unusual talent for the sky? You can try to work hard in these areas. After a pause, Penelope suddenly said to everyone solemnly, I support everyone's expertise, but the premise is that other subjects must not be left behind. At the very least, you must understand all the content in class and keep up with the progress. I don't want our grades to regress during his absence. Therefore, the group study every night will continue as usual. I hope that when Yang Tian comes back, we can give him a surprise. Any questions? No. Everyone shouted in unison. At the same time, in the study of the Foley Manor, Mr. Barnett was leisurely drinking coffee. But he saw the flame of the luxurious fireplace suddenly turned green, and a man with extremely greasy hair walked out of the fireplace. "Oh, most honored Mr. Foley, it's a great honor to receive your call. Borgin and Burks is here to serve you wholeheartedly. How can I be of service to you, sir?" Yes, the person who came was Mr. Borgin, whose voice was greasier than his hair. "No need to be so polite. I also know that Mr. Borgin's time is precious, so I'll get straight to the point." Old Fry straightened his sitting posture elegantly, but without any intention of getting up, he said directly, "The Fry family is in urgent need of a Thunderbird. I wonder if Mr. Borgin has a solution." Mr. Borgin did not express any dissatisfaction with Old Foley's actions, but after hearing the request, he was still a little bored. "Are you kidding me, old man? Thunderbird? This is not within our business scope. With your status, it should be easier to buy directly through official channels, isn't it?" "Oh, sorry, Mr. Borgin, maybe my expression is wrong. Please allow me to reorganize my words." Mr. Barnett's expression became more serious. "The Fry family needs a wild Thunderbird without any restrictions, and the sooner the better." "Oh? That's interesting. Let me think about it. Capturing it isn't that difficult, but transporting it is a big problem. After all, the destructive power of a wild Thunderbird without any restrictions is quite astonishing." Mr. Borgin's voice became greasy again. "Then send it directly to the contact point of the Fry family in Fiji." Old Fry interrupted Mr. Borgin. After a pause, he added, "The price can be calculated according to the price of sending it back to the mainland." "Oh, thank you for your generosity, Mr. Foley. You know, every employee of Borgin and Burks needs to be prepared to give back to their employers at the cost of their lives." Mr. Borgin flattered, "Then a bag of gold galleons, what do you think?" "What about the time?" "I said the sooner the better." Barnett asked. "We will complete this task within 7 days, said Mr. Borgin. 5 days, Borgin, we have known each other for a long time, and you should know my temper." Old Fry said without giving in. "Oh, Mr. Foley, you put me in a difficult position, really. However, it is my honor to serve you, your honor." "Well, 5 days is 5 days." Mr. Borgin finally made up his mind. "Very good, Borgin, I admire your courage. Well, I'll increase the reward for you. Based on 5 days as the base, the bounty will double for every day in advance." "How about it?" Barnett asked. "Are you serious?" exclaimed Mr. Borgin. "Of course, are you doubting the financial strength of the Fulai family?" Old Fulai snorted coldly. "Oh, how could that be, Mr. Foley? Don't worry, I'll go back and arrange it right away. I hope you won't be so distressed about the extremely high efficiency of Borgin and Burke's magic shop that you can't sleep." Mr. Borgin said greasily. "Borgin, your joke is not funny at all. I hope you can send the Thunderbird to Fiji now." Looking at Mr. Borgin with greedy eyes, Barnett added grimly, "But I must emphasize that what the Fry family needs is wild Thunderbirds without any restrictions. Don't play any tricks. Remember, no one can deceive the Fry family without paying a price." Mr. Borgin said seriously, "Mr. Foley, you should believe in the reputation of Borgin and Burks. We will not let our employer down or bring shame to Borgin and Burks." After that, Mr. Borgin bowed solemnly and walked towards the fireplace. Soon, Meng Meng Jiao flew out of the Foley Manor with Mr. Barnett's reply. Half an hour later, Meng Meng Jiao arrived at Hogwarts, and Hagrid, Neville, Hermione and a group of friends also sent their replies.